Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using the code FOREVER. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Welcome in, everyone, to the Seahawks Syndicate. I'm your host tonight, Bryce Coutts from the Hawkseye, but I've got Brandon Cain, Mookie Alexander, and Dan Viens right below me, and we are going to talk all things 49ers, Seahawks, this massive conference divisional matchup that's coming up at the end of this week on Saturday. Gentlemen, I'll start with you, Brandon. How are you doing?
Oh, it doesn't get better than this, man. Storybook season with a potential storybook end, and you get to do it all in the back of taking down the nemesis, the great rival. Pinch me, I must be dreaming.
Mookie, how about yourself? How are you feeling going into Saturday?
I am pumped. I'm excited. Am I a little nervous? Absolutely. But there's a little bit of a difference between, oh my God, these last couple of weeks, are they going to make the playoffs? They better win this game or else they might miss the playoffs versus, all right, worst case scenario, you're the 5 seed and you get an NFC South winner. Certainly it would impact Super Bowl chances if they win this game or if they lose this game. But the fact that the Seahawks are even in this position, I know we got a couple of people on 13-4 Island here, but the number of people who thought that the Seahawks could be the #1 seed heading into Week 18 can't be very large.
Dan, and I'm going to finish this off with you. How are you feeling? I know you've been busy today recording shows and whatnot, but how are you feeling, sir?
I'm doing my normal thing where I kind of start the week a little pessimistically and concerned, and I think about all the ways that things could go badly. And then as the week goes along and I dig into the game, I talk myself into being confident. The one thing that's interesting about this game and this week, I keep forgetting there's other games this week. Like that's how much this feels like a playoff game. It has completely escaped my notice that, oh yeah, there's still about 2/3 of a slate of games on Sunday still to come.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. We got college football rolling right now. The Panthers and the Bucks divisional matchup is before ours on Saturday, and then obviously we didn't get the Sunday slate because everybody's going to be so dialed in to Baltimore and Pittsburgh and that divisional matchup. As we all know, we're going to be glued to our seats for that one. So, gentlemen, let's start this off with kind of an interesting take I've got on this for the Seahawks in this game. Is this game, if they win or lose, is it going to be a true statement on the season or really a reality check for all of us on where this team actually is? And Brandon, I'll start with you.
I think it would be more reality check to me. Because I'm not going to be one of those ones that walks into this game believing that as much. I mean, I'm concerned with the game. Niners can take us down, but where they stand, where you expect yourselves to be on this, and this season specifically, it's not a failure not to reach this mark this year, of course. Let's keep the grand perspective at play. But for this particular season, if you're not able to take this Niner team down with this many injuries, with as good as you are injury situational wise, with as good as the run game going, just a lot of different factors that are in the plus column to your side of it on this one. I would say that that's a bit of a reality check moving into the playoffs and that you're prepared to finally take really that full final step to contention mode. Might be able to win a couple playoff games, but it would definitely have me a little bit chagrined towards the grander plan at play.
Mookie, how would you categorize this?
First of all, we got somebody in the comments, a Broncos fan, asking, Mile High 3093, did Seattle pay off the refs yet? And Mile High 3093, the banks are closed today, so I didn't have time to run down and finish off the remaining deposit. But it's on the way. It'll be in Bill Vinovich's hands by Friday night. You can promise.
Called layaway.
I promise you that. Anyway, as far as a statement, I think it would be a big statement if they won this game. In the sense that, all right, this is not their #1 seed by happenstance or anything. They will have beaten the Rams and 49ers who were talked about. Well, honestly, the 49ers hadn't been talked about a ton as still being in the division race up until these last couple of weeks. Things changed when the Seahawks beat the Rams because that kind of opened the door for the Niners to sneak back in. But if Seattle avenges 2 of their 3 losses, which means avenging that Rams loss that paved the way for them to get the 1 seed, and avenging the Niners loss, which is kind of why we're even in this situation of a winner take all week 18. That would, to me, tell everybody the Seahawks team they've been for real pretty much all season, but they should be considered the favorites to win the NFC, if not win it all, because the AFC is a decidedly weaker conference this year. Would it be a reality check if they lost? I think only if it depends on how the game goes. If this defense gets absolutely destroyed by San Francisco's offense and the 49ers offense keeps humming, I think that would be a little bit of a reality check in terms of how great the Seahawks defense is. But otherwise, Seattle is a great team. The 49ers are a very, very good team and should get a lot of credit for how well they've played given all of the injuries. But I don't want it to be like a massive overreaction if they lose, unless they put in a performance that is so poor that it warrants an overreaction.
So, Dan, I'm going to ask you this. If Seattle wins this game, does it officially change how you view their Super Bowl ceiling this year, or do you still need to see a whole bunch of it proven out throughout the postseason? Obviously, they got to win their games, but does it change the ceiling for you? Do you still, they win this, does it really put them as your Super Bowl frontrunner out of the NFC?
First of all, let me just say this. We just came out of the holiday season. It's New Year's. This is the time of year, a lot of us, we're focused on gratitude. We look back what we're grateful for. And where's the gratitude from the 49er fans? Like they're only in this position because we beat the Rams 2 weeks ago. They're talking so much shit, and they're only in this position because of what we did for them 2 weeks ago. I just had to get that off my chest.
They do not just oh my god, like that. Just,
right? Where's the
gratitude?
wear
my ear out.
No, I've been convinced probably for 4 or 5 weeks. I think even before the Rams win, and even more so obviously since then, because that was just a big monkey they had to get off their back. That the ceiling of this team is they can win the Super Bowl. I've felt that way for about 6 weeks. Now their margin for error might be a little more narrow than some of the other teams out there, but they're certainly capable of it if they play their best and if they play well. And for me, they're a year ahead of schedule. I did not see this. I thought 6 new starters on offense, one of them being the quarterback. You trade away your wide receiver one, an entirely new offensive staff. I thought this year for the offense was going to be like we saw last year with the defense, where it would be a year of growth. And then at the end of the year, we would know exactly what needed to be done in the offseason. Now you get some continuity coming back. You look for that second-year leap out of that group next year. I thought 2026 would really be the year that we'd be a Super Bowl contender. So we're a year ahead of schedule, in my opinion. And I view this as a progress report, and so I guess that would lean more towards statement. It's certainly not a must-win game. It's been well documented, and we're going to continue talking about it tonight, how, the path, if they should lose this game, isn't all that daunting, to be honest. In fact, some people would argue that it might be in some ways a better path. I don't agree with that. I think it's better have to win 2 games than 3 and to be able to play at home. If they win, it would be a huge statement, and it would be yet another box checked off and another monkey off their back. If they don't, it's not the end of the world. You move on. We'll probably see this team again in the playoffs. So I hope they play that way, because I think the pressure is on the 49ers and not the Seahawks. And I hope they come out and play loose and free and easy and have fun, and they're violent and they're intense, because they really don't have anything to lose in this game.
It's interesting for me because the last point you made there, Dan, about where the pressure of this game lies. Does it lie on the 49ers? Does it lie on the Seahawks? I tend to feel it lies actually on Seattle. And the one factor, I'll say why. The 49ers, based on the injuries they had this year, a lot of us kind of wrote them off. Like Mookie brought it up earlier saying, like, hey, they weren't really part of this conversation. It was Seattle and the Rams for most of the year. And the 49ers just kept doing their thing. With the injuries to Fred Warner, to Bosa, to Michael Williams, like list goes on. Like you basically take out their injury report and it just rolls off like tapestry. That's where I feel like for Seattle on this, if they want to be considered someone that's still not the little brother, they conquered the Rams. They got a win against the Rams in a big game on Thursday night. They need to get that win versus the Niners to not be considered the little brother a little more, at least in my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel. Dan, do you feel any different?
Well, see, that's why I think the pressure is on them. I think they need to win this game, because I think their path to the Super Bowl needs to include a bye and home field advantage. I don't think they travel as well as the Seahawks. And also, if they if they lose this game, they might drop down to the 6th seed and things get a lot crazier for them, depending on how things go this weekend. A little bit tougher task. I think they, more than the Seahawks, need to win this game to have the preferred path to the Super Bowl for them.
Brandon, what about you? How do you view it?
Yeah, I think that both you have two good points on this. I don't think it's the end of the world in losing the game, but I also don't think it's not nothing to have go down when you consider where they're at injury-wise. If we walked into playing in the Niners and we were able to beat them with just 3/4 of our best players down alone, that'd be pretty significant. And that's what the Niners are engaged in on top of plus. I mean, let's just put this down on the floor really quickly on what this Niner team is in base terms. I know we got a long show here, but $100 million in dead money. They let 3 key free agents walk out the door this offseason in Hufanga, Greenlaw, Javarius Ward. They've moved on from the linebacker position in that Nick Martin, and they've got the D Winters kid, not too sure there. Mykel Williams, top 12 pick, out for the year. Bosa gone. Warner gone. They had a defensive line that they cut out a lot of that dead money from. Like, why our offense is weak is we got about $60 million of that dead money is to the offense of the $80 million. Likewise with San Francisco, Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins. These are the type of deals. Leonard Floyd. These are the dead money deals that they're sustaining, weakening down that core just naturally as it was. You put that all into the barrel to me on top of that, and then you've got a Trent Williams. You've got a Christian McCaffrey who looks like his back's about to snap. You got Kittle out there walking out on paper mache of an ankle held together by Elmer's glue. And I do kind of go, yeah, I get where they're at, but I also look at their back half of their schedule, and they've been feasting on the less. Remember the whole easy, schedule thing. So that's where I do come back to. I don't want to overstate it. Dan, to your point on that, it's a good one in that, look, we can still go out there and get the pathway to go. This doesn't end your year, but it's also not nothing to not be able to take that team down with where they're at, especially when you look at where we're at on the other side of it, just merely but for the injury front. We're not down. We got 4 of our 4 best players rocking, right? You could almost go down the line onto it. Like we're at our 14th of 14th best player going. And I think that's kind of significant as far as the difference goes.
Mookie, how do you feel?
About which team should feel under more pressure in this game? I actually think it should still be Seattle for one reason in particular. 5 straight road games is the potential path to the Super Bowl. I mean, they're playing these last 2 on the road. And then unless you get the 6 and 7 seeds pulling off upsets, which at this point you can't discount. I think both AFC and NFC, you could see more road teams winning than usual in the playoffs because of the strength of the wild card teams in both conferences. Like Buffalo is a wild card. Houston, unless Jacksonville completely screws up on Sunday, is going to be a wild card, and their defense is right up there with Seattle's, if not even better. And then who's the other wild card? The Chargers are also a wild card, but they've got like 5 random people on the offensive line, so that's kind of like there's going to be a limitation there. In the NFC, it's going to be one of Seattle or San Francisco. Is going to be Green Bay and the Rams as your wild card teams, and Green Bay will have Jordan Love back. I know losing Parsons absolutely limits their ceiling as far as a Super Bowl run, but all 6 of those wild card teams I mentioned have legitimate chances to win on opening weekend. But like I said, 5 straight road games to get to a Super Bowl has never been done before. The maximum is 3. We've had a few teams make the Super Bowl winning 3 road games in a row, but all of them had their final regular season game at home, and it's a lot. Just on the human body. I don't care how much sports science gets into it, to just travel constantly every single week. There's a reason why you max out at 3 straight home games or 3 straight road games in the regular season. It's not the NBA or the NHL or Major League Baseball where you can get these marathon road stands or home stands. So for Seattle to have gone on a 6-game winning streak, although the Niners have admittedly won 7, and potentially not win the division, that would sting a little bit. I actually think San Francisco is I don't want to say playing with house money, but they've probably have a feeling like, hey, we've made it this far with as many people as we're missing. We're able to at least function without our best defensive players, and we've had a lot of guys on offense out throughout the year. So whatever we do this season would be incredible. Now, in the longer term, it might mean a lot more for San Francisco with their cap situation. But in terms of this year, this playoff run, I absolutely think it's of paramount importance that the Seahawks win this game to get the home field advantage throughout the playoffs, but also that bye, because I don't know if Charles Cross is good to go for Wild Card weekend. I mean, he didn't practice this weekend, so that's just another thing to consider. The one little bit of soft cushion is the fact that the Rams lost on Monday, and we know that they're the 5 seed. I feel a little bit less comfortable if there was a scenario where they lost on Saturday night and ended up as a 6 seed because the Rams won their last game. And then they got to go to Philadelphia or Chicago. And not saying those games are unwinnable, far from it, but that's a lot different than playing Carolina or a Tampa Bay team that could be last place if things go wrong this weekend. So yes, just win, baby. That's, to me, Seattle's got the pressure on them, but they've been stepping up to pressure consistently well.
All right, so let's talk about this 49ers code and cracking it. And I think it's something that we saw a little bit of last year with Mike getting the win in Santa Clara late last season when they were able to pull it out and Gino had the scramble into the end zone. But this has definitely been something that I think Seattle struggled with for a few years, especially since Kyle Shanahan's kind of come into the fold there in San Francisco outside of the few years of the injury. So, Brandon, I'm going to ask you this. If you're game planning as Seattle, what's the first 49ers tendency you're going to attack and flip the script on if you're Mike Macdonald?
Over routes. I went back and looked at the tape this week with Brock and the interceptions he's thrown this year, and there's been almost one centralized data point within those interceptions time and time again, and it is on over routes. There is about 2 other throws, one to McCaffrey, an overthrow, another one with an overthrow. But this is where defenses are not only getting interceptions on these throws, they're doing it from a variety of fashions. And where when you talk about Macdonald having creativity to be able to attack certain routes from odd directions, there's a play, for instance, with J.C. Horn on an over route where it's coming from the high side in, Horn's all the way on the far side field, and he just drives on the route in anticipation of it prior to the snap, and this is deep middle of the field, to jump the route. I'm not as sure it's Horn there just making a great play, because it's kind of like one of those rules, Bryce, you'd attest to this, where you would not usually allow a cornerback to do such a thing there. He's doing it because they're trying to take away the over routes. What did Ernest Jones get his interception on in the first game?
Over route.
An over route. So I would try to understand with this Niner offense in just a general terms here out the gate, you're not going to take away everything with that offense. It's going to find success on the day. Find things within the offense you can take away. And Macdonald has not seemingly shown unless it's going to rain, like in that game, the second game against the Niners last year, that he's going to blitz. He's going to keep the blitz rate around 20%. He's not going to really stack the box. So there's already tools he's already shown you he's not going to put into the kit going into this game. I would expect that. I would really lock in on those over routes because I think that's where the interceptions happen in this game. That's where you can get some picks on him. I think there's a reason that you've seen it as a strain with him throughout this year, and a year where interceptions have been a little bit high with him.
Mookie, where do you see the Seahawk fans maybe underestimating how difficult this matchup could really be within the game? What matchup for you is one that's not being looked at nearly enough?
This sounds a little easy, but George Kittle didn't play much of the first game. And in the win over San Francisco last year, I don't think Kittle played at all. And in the first game that the Seahawks played the 49ers last year, albeit this is pre-Ernest, pre-Tyrese Knight in the lineup, and a whole lot of changes there, Kittle absolutely destroyed Seattle's defense. So this is the first time, unless he gets hurt again or doesn't play at all because he is listed as questionable, that we should expect a full game of Kittle against this Seahawks defense. The Ernest Jones era of Seahawks defense. Seattle has been excellent defensively pretty much all year. And as I said on Twitter earlier today, a full credit to Mike Macdonald for the fact that they've had a bad game here or there, but they haven't had these lapses that bleed into the next game. In fact, there have been no lulls. They give up 38 to Tampa Bay. They hold Jacksonville to 12 the next week, even with the guys that were missing. Or they give up 30-something to the Rams. And I know, some of that was short fields, or at least one of them was. And then the next week, they hold Carolina to 10 points and 40 yards passing. So that's a big credit to them. But as far as some areas they could exploit, I believe they're 18th by DVOA against tight ends. And they have had issues throughout the season giving up some chunk plays to tight ends. But it's not just what Kittle can do as a receiver. It's how do you solve when Kittle is involved as a run blocker? Because the reason why Kittle is a perennial Pro Bowler, all-pro level player as long as he's healthy is because he means a metric ton to the run game, and perhaps even more so this weekend because Trent Williams, I don't think, is going to play. You haven't practiced all week and you're dealing with a hamstring injury, probably not going to play, and if he does, he's not going to be 100%. Zero chance of that. You can count on that. So I believe how Macdonald schemes against Kittle is going to be of paramount importance. So, you're going to have to accept there might be some catches that you're going to give up, But what are you going to do as far as, are you going to play man-to-man? Are you going to put a corner on him? You and I talked about this, I think, on Monday on Seahawks Aftermath. Would you put Spoon on Woolen? How much are you going to put Spoon on Woolen? Spoon on Kittle? That would be a little bit of sabotage. Are you going to put Wari on George Kittle? I mean, what are you going to do on that front? But yes, I think that the tight end situation is going to be huge for the Seahawks, and they've been destroyed by Kittle so many times. That'd be good just this one time to limit his effectiveness one way or another, whether it's blocking for McCaffrey and Brian Robinson or limiting the damage he can do in the passing game.
I totally agree, Mookie, and that's going to be something I think that they're going to have to. Mike Macdonald's probably sitting there still tonight trying to figure out, okay, how much do I put Wari on Kittle? How much do I use Drake Thomas or Spoon or whoever? How are we going to get this rotation and different looks to work that way? Dan, I'll ask you, this is one of the last questions in this, but what, in your opinion, has San Francisco consistently done to Seattle in this rivalry that hasn't been solved yet?
I think just getting Purdy into a rhythm. It's such a timing-based offense, and the Seahawks are at times really good at disrupting that. They've also been really good, except maybe the Tennessee game when they kind of let Cam Ward get outside the pocket and make some plays with his feet, at containing mobile quarterbacks, playmakers at the quarterback position. I used to always say that Purdy was underrated in that department. I think he's appropriately rated now. I think people recognize how many plays he can make with his feet. He certainly did on Sunday night in that game against Chicago. You got to get him off his spot. You got to disrupt his timing. And I think there's obviously two ways to do that. One is you can put pressure on him. Of course, that's the storyline going into any game. And in week one, the Seahawks pressured Brock Purdy at a rate that he's never been pressured before. It's about 57, 58%. Now, he was still really efficient in completing the football, but he did throw the 2 interceptions. And there were times that he had to go to his second or third read. I think the other part of that is, can you disrupt their receivers? In a timing-based offense, the more you can do to disrupt those guys coming off the line of scrimmage, the better chances you have of disrupting their flow. And the way to do that's to play man-to-man defense, which Mike Macdonald doesn't always do. He likes to play a lot of zone. My ears really perked up last week when Teterow McMillan after the game said, man, they played a lot more man today against us than we had game planned for and than we had seen on film. And I immediately thought, well, I hope they carry that same game plan into this game this week, because I think that could be a way, especially if they get up, maybe get physical at the line of scrimmage to kind of disrupt that thing. I think that's what it's about. And then when Purdy does start to move, just make sure you contain him, right? Just keep him inside. And they do such a good job that they're so disciplined in their rush lanes, those outside guys, especially Uchenna Nwosu and DeMarcus Lawrence. And we get Derek Hall back, of course, this week. He's going to be playing pissed off. I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to, I feel like CMC is going to get his yards. He's going to get his touches. Can you limit the explosive plays and keep Purdy from beating you down the field?
So I think there's a couple interesting things about the personnel here for Seattle's defense compared to week one, which I'll be honest, gentlemen, that feels like another season ago almost. The time that's gone between game one and game two of this matchup this season. You're getting Riq Woolen, who's playing probably some of his better football as of late, where in game one he was victimized by Kyle Shanahan in this 49ers passing attack. You also have Drake Thomas, who's now stepped in, because in that game, Tyrese Knight started and wasn't fully healthy, really, and kind of, I think we saw had some issues in there. And so you get Drake Thomas in there at a linebacker spot with a little bit of athleticism. And even if they do sub in Tyrese Knight, we've seen that he's finally now healthy. But Dan, you brought up one name that wasn't a part of that pass rush in that first game, and that's Uchenna Nwosu. How much do you think, Brandon, for you, these additions to the defense and the way that the defense is playing now compared to week one? And I know in some respects it's apple and oranges, but how much do you think that is going to have an effect on some of the things the 49ers do well being taken away from them?
My main point would be more of the Wari Spoon combo, because I think there's a force multiplier to that situation that occurred about 4 plays into the first game that really did change our game plan. And not only that, we were in camp. We saw Witherspoon on the outside. I know he's got the background in the slot, but he'd been training all offseason to be the outside corner, and then he's got to be kicked in that game midway through. I got to feel like that didn't necessarily throw out the game plan, but it definitely changed a little bit of the way that they wanted to roll. Now you're going to have Wari out there, and that's really the combo. Uchenna's nice, but I think we all have got to acknowledge with the pressure this year that It's almost as nice as just for the rotations to me on this. It's going to be a playoff atmosphere. The snaps you have on the books are going to be very high intense snaps that are going to tap you out a little quicker. Having the 4 active rushers you can go to who can remain fresh throughout the course of the game is going to be a very helpful factor there. But I do look at it more into that secondary. And if I can turn back to a little bit of your points on Kittle, I don't think there's any question about what they do with Kittle. And this is something with Mike that can frustrate you or delight you. But this is the reality of Mike, which is that they are going to play their defense. This is not a spy quarterback type of defense. This is not a roll coverages to a double team type of defense. This is not a Emanwari's going to travel with Kittle type of defense. This is that if Kittle's on Emanwari's side, they're dropping zone, he happens to be in his zone, he'll pick him up. If he's over on Drake Thomas's side at the will linebacker position, dropping his zone, Drake Thomas will pick him up. That's the way this defense is going to roll for good, bad, or the other. So to that point, I think that this is the key on this to like a limiting guy like Kittle is he gets his. But the one key that they've changed up into big to me defensive-wise that Uchenna or Boye Mafe can go to that they went to in the first Ram game, is the play action attacking the quarterback solely. I checked out one of the snaps in that game with Parasol running across or attacking that very Tyrese Knight limitation that we had in that game that you talked about in the crosser. And first Boye as the backside rusher unblocked, it's the unblocked edge, is crashing down, scraping down the line because he's trying to help out in the run game. And I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on this, that he then kind of reroutes and then gets back out onto Brock, right? So it's like, and then he's back out on Brock. By that time, though, the crosser has a chance to clear and Brock has a chance to set his feet and make the throw. I say in a game like this, price of doing business if you give up some of the ground game, 3.9 yard per carry McCaffrey. I go attack the quarterback downhill on the backside edge, specifically with the intention of removing that tight end drag route that comes back across the formation or the long crosser to the slot.
I'm in agreement with you on that, Brandon. I think it's something Carolina actually did to us in a way in this last game to our offense where they blitzed and brought pressure right on the boot plays with Sam. And it takes away that ability for your crosser because your crosser, like you said, is trying to come across the field. He's got to go under some traffic. He's got to clear out and get across. And that's where a lot of these teams, like you said in the first game, we kind of went in on the run, tried to basically, seal that, then have to chase Purdy. And to your point, he got his feet set. He makes a good throw. I agree. I think you give up a little bit in that run game and you go and you start hitting Purdy because then all of a sudden his rolls start getting a little bit shorter. His fakes don't, seem to work just as well because he's got to get his head around to find out where that free guy's coming from. I think that's not a bad game plan in this to kind of disrupt some of that, rhythm and flow to that passing game.
Mm-hmm. Dan, where do you stand?
Right here.
No, on that.
I think you're sitting. So
honestly, I can't wait to see how this defense looks with the fully healthy secondary because we didn't get to see it week 1, and to your point, Brandon, I think that's right. I sometimes guilty of thinking, well, let's throw a curveball at them. Let's do something different. Let's do something that they haven't seen on tape yet from us. But to your point, that's not what Mike Macdonald does. And so I think this defense is ready for this challenge. It doesn't mean that they're going to limit him to 200 yards of offense. That's not what Mike Macdonald does. They play bend, don't break. They'll let you get your yards, especially early in a game. And it can be frustrating as a fan, right? We all get amped up for the game. We know we have a great defense. And they usually start off with the other team getting a couple of big runs or everybody seems to want to throw it out in the flat against us early. And certainly we could look for Kyle to do that to CMC. But if we can weather that storm and get stops when they count, just like we did week 16 against the Rams, right? Matt Stafford throws for 450 yards. But what happened in the second half? 5 straight drives of the punt. You got stops when you needed to. I think this defense is capable of doing that against this offense because I do think let me clarify this. I think the 49ers offense right now is playing better than any offense in the league. I think Brock Purdy is playing better than any quarterback in the league, including Drake May, who's on fire. But I still think the Rams are a better offense. And the Seahawks were able to get stops in that game in the second half when they needed to.
Mookie, I do want to hear from you on this really quick. Just to dial down though, Dan, if you're looking defensively to drive something to the performance of this team of the Niners, is there something specifically at the head of what you're thinking here from a stack box to simulate pressure to blitz to press coverage to band coverage concepts where you mentioned that earlier, I believe, maybe that's where you lean. Is there kind of a centerpiece of a strat that you'd be looking at in this one?
Yeah, not conceptually, but just a bottom line, convert pressures to sacks. They got a lot of pressure on Brock in week 1. I don't know if they took him to the ground. Maybe once. I'd have to go back and look at the box score. But get him to the ground. And we've seen that a lot from the Seahawks team. I mean, their sack numbers are solid. They're top 3rd in the league, but the pressure doesn't always translate to sacks. I think to slow this offense down and limit possessions and get the ball back to the offense, we've got to convert some of those pressures to sacks and get Purdy on the ground.
Yeah, I was about to say, first of all, Brandon, I swear you said parasol for Pearsall, so I guess the Seahawks are going to be doing some umbrella coverage soon. But one thing that I wanted to go off from what Dan had said is like we got a healthy secondary. Not quite, because Kobe Bryant's not going to play. I mean, he's doubtful. He's not playing.
Tyler is better.
But the one big...
Tyler is better.
Yes, exactly. And there's a big difference between Ty Okada replacing Nicky Manwari cold on day 1 and Ty Okada being inserted into the starting lineup again when he's had several games playing in Julian Love's absence. And then, of course, playing last week in place of Kobe Bryant. And honestly, he was amazing with his open field tackling. Everybody was, but Okada in particular was so good. The Seahawks social media account put that video of teach tape essentially from Ty Okada. The man coverage stuff is interesting because it's not new on how to stymie the 49ers. Certainly when Debo was still with the 49ers last year, they were having their struggles, they just said, let's do man-to-man on Debo. He can't really separate as much anymore. And the 49ers offense had a hard time dealing with teams who could effectively do man-to-man coverage against them. I wouldn't put it past Macdonald to try and play a little more man against San Francisco's receivers, because after you get past Pearsall, I mean, you've got guys like Demarcus Robinson and Kendrick Bourne, and I guess Sky Moore is there another receiver for them. Not a fearsome group of receivers. Yes, they're capable of getting open and they can slice up zones just as well as any other receiving group that Kyle Shanahan has had. But I think that Seattle's corners can play man coverage pretty effectively. And also worth noting, they played man more than zone than they usually do last week. Reek Woolen significantly outsnapped Josh Jobe. And that hasn't happened since the Vikings game. And the caveat, the asterisk there is Jobe had that concussion when that Vikings dude just plowed into him in garbage time. So Woolen got to play through the end of the game and Jobe did not. I think this could be a big Reek game for the potential of him playing more one-on-one stuff. So because we know over the years, even though I'm sure when Macdonald is in zone, and I think he'll still be in zone most of the time, Shanahan is just a wizard at exploiting those coverages, same as Sean McVay. But in terms of talent, why wouldn't you take Seattle's secondary over San Francisco's receivers? And I think that is an area where the Seahawks can absolutely try and throw the rhythm off. As you've all said, this is very much a rhythm offense, and Purdy is very much based on timing, anticipation. He'll just see, throw. I expect a guy to come out of his break. But if you jam him at the line, I mean, look at what the Bears did on play 1, and that led to the Purdy pick 6. They knocked Jennings off his spot. They pretty much ran the route for him. They get a tip drill and an interception. And the Bears decided we will not play defense for the rest of the night. That's not going to apply to the Seahawks if they do the same thing.
And the Amenwari Kittle conversation is a fascinating one because, as we mentioned, we didn't get to see it in week 1. And Amenwari's numbers covering tight ends are not great this year. You know, it's certainly an area of growth for him. I'm excited to see how he performs.
I'm too. Just to double down back to the San Francisco game initially, that those crossing routes they ran before a couple times to Pearsall, in the game were successful on the back of free releases across the field. Josh Jobe press man coverage at the line of scrimmage. Josh is able to run step for step on a crossing route and picks it off. It's really, with watching back that tape again, they're going back to some very stock routes to get after you, and how you defended on that, and the difference between the two in that game alone and how you saw it at times really stood out to you, making me feel like, I'm leaning here, man.
All right, guys. So the last question I'll ask is a roundtable question. If Seattle fixes one thing that's haunted them versus the 49ers, what should it be? And I'll start with you, Brandon.
Destroy the freaking wide 9. Run the ball and to finally conquer what should be there from a natural vulnerability on a defense, for which has been one of the biggest points for why you've not been able to succeed against this Niner team as a whole over this 6-year period, is that it's in a wider alignment on the wide 9. You should be able to run and get downhill into A and B gaps much more easier. Fred Warner, the dynamicism of the talent they have up front was what I've been into this prior. They don't have that there now. They're still a good team overall, middle of the roadish, stopping the run, but you should be able to, with your success recently, with your commitment to running the ball, you should be able to find some holes there up on that line.
Mookie, what about you?
I think you know what I'm going to say. Cut the turnovers out, for God's sake. Because, and I know it's a season-long problem, so it's not like I'm saying this because it's because of what's been going on the whole season. But part of the reason they've struggled so much against San Francisco over the years, and we can go back to either our first or second syndicate show together in this setting and not at fast fashion. They have lost the turnover battle so poorly. It's been not even close over the last 4 years. I think in 2022, they forced no turnovers and, of course, turned it over a ton, and they ended up losing all three. Same issue in 2023, turned it over multiple times, lose the game. 2024, I think they had, 3 turnovers and to none in the loss to San Francisco at home. And then in the game that they won, Gino had a completely nonsensical interception, and it was canceled out by a Purdy interception to Jonathan Hankins, I believe it was. So at least they were neutral there. Now, they were even in the turnover count this year in the first game. It was 2-2. The timing and the context of those turnovers, though, were huge. I don't think the Seahawks scored off of either of Purdy's interceptions. And on the Seahawks side, the turnovers they did have, Jackson Smith and Jigba, amazing all season. He did lose a fumble on a screen pass, and they were headed for field goal range in a game that I think was still 10-7, I believe, at the time. Yeah, and I think that the 49ers went down the field off of that and kicked a field goal to tie things up. So that was minimum to me a 6-point swing. And then, of course, Abe Lucas gets driven back into Sam Darnold's lap, fumble, game over. But Nick Bosa ain't going to be there this time around. So those are your 2 turnovers. One cost you points. Well, honestly, both cost you points, but one pretty much led to points at the other end. The other one ends the game. Seattle's just been too sloppy with the ball. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And it's not all Sam Darnold, even with the 20 turnovers. They've had so many fumbles from the wide receiver position. Even Kenneth Walker, who never fumbles, had a catch and fumble against Carolina that turned what should have been a walk-in first down and maybe a field goal attempt at the end of the first half to 4th and 1, and the mysterious short on the sneak play by Sam Darnold. So they just have to take care of the ball better, whether that's Darnold not throwing the ball into traffic as much, finding a way to stop getting passes batted down pretty much every week these days, and then just ball security in general from your skill position players. I love A.J. Barner. He's fumbled a couple of times. He just hasn't lost them yet. JSN's fumbled 3 times. It's just that he's only lost 1. So if Pete Carroll could be in Seattle's locker room just one time, then, I don't want any interference for any other reason. Like, all of these turnovers would make Pete pop multiple blood vessels. But in this instance, like, his freak out over turnovers was very much warranted. So if they can limit the turnovers, then I think they're in good shape. But if they turn it over as often as they do, and so often it ends up being either in the red zone or deep in their own territory, then that's how you let any team back into a game. And against better teams like San Francisco and the Rams, that could be the difference between a win and a loss.
Very true, Mookie. All right, Dan, you've got the board. You got the soundboarding here. What's the one last thing that you would say that Seattle needs to work on to stop the 49ers from haunting them?
When I think about the recent history against the 49ers and losing 7 and 8 to them, it's about explosive plays. It's something that has reared its head in every game that we've played against them. Now, this year, if you just look at the overall stats, they're 20th in the league in explosive play percentage, but I think a lot of that is due to the games that Mac Jones started. They weren't getting the ball downfield as much as they could, and they had all those injuries at wide receiver, and that obviously took away some of that explosiveness. Obviously, that would play well into what this defense does well. They're currently second in the league at limiting explosive plays, but my goodness, you're playing an offense that's already good, and now they're hot, and that's a dangerous combination. And because Sunday against the Bears, it just seemed like 60 minutes of one big, giant, never-ending explosive play. So we got to keep those in check.
I think for me, the one thing, if Seattle could fix it versus the 49ers, is, as crazy as it sounds, is you've got to not overthink the game. And I think sometimes we get caught up in those. We saw it with Kubiak. We'd seen it at different points with even Pete and some of the other coaches we've had here in Seattle when we play the Niners. And Shanahan and the Niners are going to get theirs. It's going to happen. It's divisional football. You're not going to completely stymie them off the board. Like you might make it hard, but they're going to get theirs. That doesn't mean you have to hit the panic button. And that's the one thing for me that I've seen in the past with Seattle is sometimes we, in the Russ era, okay, all of a sudden we abandon the run game and we start throwing it all over the place. And even this year, when we went into that game earlier this year, we all talked about it pre-show. Hey, it was the shotgun fest with no play action. After we had kind of been promised this offseason, we were going to run the ball. And it was like we went away from it. I think that's the biggest thing for them to get over is don't overthink and outthink yourself. And that's the thing I think that'll help this Seahawks team maybe the most in this situation. So we're going to move along here, guys, to a topic I think that's definitely going to play a massive factor in this game. And that's, we talked about turnovers, but more specifically between these two quarterbacks. And there's so much of a narrative right now that Sam Darnold is kind of a turnover machine. I know, Brandon, you've heard it. Dan, you've heard it. Mookie as well. Like, all Sam does lately is turn the ball over, and, he's that leads the NFL in turnovers. Brock Purdy, on the other hand, when it comes to turnover-worthy throws, or I believe interception-worthy throws, is actually ahead rating-wise than Sam. And what that means is he has a higher turnover-worthy play rate than Sam Darnold. And he's also played in less games. Dan, I'll start with you on this. When we look at this matchup between these two, what coverage or pressure look do you think is going to force Brock into some bad decisions that Mike Macdonald and this defense can run that are going to cause problems?
Well, again, I think we've covered this pretty comprehensively. He's not going to throw anything at them they haven't seen. They're just going to have to play well and show up and execute. And I think, this is a big game for Reek Woolen. It's been a very, very quiet on Reek Island over the last month or so. And that's because A, he's locking his guy down. And B, he's not doing anything stupid. He's not costing us games. He's not screwing things up. And so I think they just have to play their game and just play fundamental assignment sound football. Be violent up front and communicate well on the back end and do the things you have to do, to be sticky in coverage, because Brock will put the ball in jeopardy, as Mike Macdonald likes to say. The ball will come alive at times. They have to take advantage of it. They've been doing that lately. They've been taking the ball away. And to your point, Brock Purdy's played in 8 games. He's thrown 9 interceptions. That's a 17-game pace of, if my math is correct, of 15 or of 19. 19, and Sam's on pace for 15. So I think he is going to give us opportunities to take the ball away. We have to take advantage of that. On the other side, it's a slippery slope trying to coach turnovers out of a quarterback, right? I'm sure you would agree with that, Bryce. You don't want to take away the aggressiveness and the confidence that a guy with the arm talent that Sam Darnold has. And I think we've seen a little bit of that since the Rams game. I think it's 9 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, but also he's not attempting as many tight window throws. He's being more careful. Now, they've won every game since then, so the formula is working. I want to see him play free and easy on Saturday. And if he throws a pick or two, it just needs to be balanced out with some explosive plays, because we haven't seen as many of those the last few weeks.
No, and I think that's definitely fair. Brandon, for you, like, as a play caller, okay, I'm going to make you the Seattle Seahawks OC. You're taking over for Clint Kubiak. Just don't Ryan Grubb the situation, all right? How do you help Sam play a clean game? What are you looking to call? What are you looking to lean into to have him play as clean a game possible on the road?
Well, I think you wanted, to Dan's point, open up the full totality of the playbook and not limit him or make him play. This is be against this defense where I think you got room for error. I think there's reason to believe we don't have to play this tight, that we can come out this with a little bit of a loose feeling. Now, that doesn't say that we're just going to let it rip and let it fly. I think first thing you got to start out with is some easy throws to start him off. I don't want to see a 7-step drop off the first play, launching it into the nether regions of the field off the rip. Let the guy get into some rhythm, hyper utilize the play action game. And going back and watching the Niner defense, and I don't know if this is inherently because the Niner defense plays the wide zone in practice every day. And so when they faced us that first week, all of our linemen are learning this new scheme. And I'm just thinking this logically, that it worked this way, where they were seeing all these little tells They're same type of tells that a Shanahan would have coached out of his linemen 3 and 4 years into the process. Get your hands off the wide of your knuckle. Get on this. Make sure you're selling this as pass pro, even though it's going to be run block because the defender's looking at you. And it really felt like in that game against the Niners, those linebackers and Warner especially were doing a lot of tap dancing towards where the run play was going prior to the snap. And I think that if that's going to happen, you got to burn their sweet ass on that. And that's off the play action, that's off the rollouts, and then thump them, both hitting them deep on that. And then if it's opened up on the easy squeezy throw for Sam, give them a levels concept, pump right in there. And I'd live in a lot of that in this game, especially off utilizing a lot of that A and B gap running style, because those are the play actions that really sell off that. You don't have to get to the outside zone on the play action, then it can be a power play action play for him, and you're just working off what you're just utilizing on those A and B gap runs into the wide 9. So I think you start out with giving him some easy completions. You work in some of the bubble screen. You work in some traditional just kind of shock screens that you can trot out there, and you trust in him. You let the playbook run in full a little bit based on how the Niners are going to play it themselves defensively and what they're going to give you, because every defense is going to open the door to something. But I trust in Sam in this. And I'd like to see where maybe some of you guys are in the chat, or you guys here in the stream on this. And I'm just not as worried about the interception stuff with Sam. I think with Brock, you get worried about it because you wonder, are the interceptions a product of the limitations of what he brings to the position physically? Sam is not limited in the least physically when it comes to the position. And he's not got anything, I don't think, mentally that's deficient either. I don't think any of you would make the case for that. So is it something that then is inherently going to be a problematic thing now and into the future? Or is it more likely than not a thing of this season? Whereas with Brock, he's been more loose and free with the ball prior to this year too. This interception thing ain't no new kid on the block. So love to hear your guys' thoughts on that, but I'm just not as wrapped up into it. We've lost the turnover battle a ton this year, and we've still routed teams in those games.
Mookie, I'll let you answer Brandon's kind of question there. Go for it.
I'm not too worried about the Darnold interception thing in the sense that he's not putting the ball in harm's way like 4 or 5 times where it's a reckless throw. I mean, the Cooper Kupp interception that almost was, I would put a lot more on Kupp. It's not a great ball, but that's also a pass that Kupp should be catching, and it almost ricocheted directly into Derek Brown's arms. Jalen Sundell with the PBU. I'm guessing the Mike Jackson pick was a little bit of miscommunication because I can't really explain otherwise why he would make that throw. JSN was otherwise pretty well covered if it was meant to be like a throw to the back of the end zone and not a back shoulder. But there's no denying, and I wrote about this yesterday, the Seahawks offense since the Rams game has declined. And a lot of it is because the explosives have gone. Now, what I mean by that is the explosive pass plays from weeks 1 through the Cardinals game. They were the best in the league at generating explosive pass plays of 20 yards or more. Since then, they have been below the league average. Now, at the same time, their run explosive rate has actually gone up to above league average. So the running game has gotten better. The problem is their success rate is still mediocre. Whereas the passing game, the success rate is still very good, but on a more consistent down-to-down basis, there are some like catastrophic things or just incomplete passes or turnovers or just ineffective plays that are dragging the stat down. So without the explosives, I feel like it does limit Darnold to a degree, but I put that a little bit more on Clint Kubiak because it seems like when defenses have been more willing to let the Seahawks run the ball, give them more run-friendly looks, he's not committing to it as often. In fact, they are not as run heavy these last 7 weeks as they were in the first part of the year when they were running the ball a lot and not doing it well whatsoever. So the other aspect of it is the play action game is still great for the Seahawks. In fact, Darnold is first in EPA per drop back on play action passes, even slightly above Matthew Stafford. Without it, he's 23rd. And no other quarterback other than Lamar Jackson has that big a drop-off of at least the quarterbacks in the top 10 in play action. I don't think that's a case of Darnold's a play action merchant. I don't think it's a case where he can't do straight drop back. In fact, we see him in 2-minute drills regularly and can do it pretty well. But in the flow of the game where they're not having to do hurry-up offense, I think that Kubiak struggles to develop a pure drop-back passing game. And I know we've discussed a lot how much of this is not having Torrey Horton. And I don't want to kind of make that Commanders game like this was what Horton was going to be for the rest of the season because the Commanders defense is dreadful. The 2 games prior to that, Horton had no catches on 4 targets. And in fact, he hasn't had a game this year prior to his injury where he had more than 4 targets. So was he getting more involved in the offense or were the Commanders just a really poor defense that Horton could shred? So it's just pure speculation as to whether or not Horton would have meant more. And Rashid Shaheed is kind of a more refined version of Horton at this rate. It's just he didn't have a whole offseason with the Seahawks. I'm really glad that Shaheed is going to be playing on Saturday because that's a big help for Darnold and the Seahawks passing offense and the special teams. But in terms of what Kubiak can do for Darnold, yes, easier throws. You know those little quick outs to JSN? Start doing that earlier. And I don't mean like the failed screens that they love doing, but quick throws to get the ball out of his hand easier completions. And then hopefully that can open up more of the intermediate shots and deeper shots. They're not even trying deep passes lately. And we've all parroted the stat. Since the Rams game, meaning the Rams loss, they've only had 5 throws attempted of 30 yards or longer, and they've completed none since the Titans game. And the Titans, again, terrible defense. So I think that the offense has been figured out to an extent, and the adjustment onus is on Kubiak to make life easier for Sam. And if there was another adjustment to make in terms of making it a little less of a scare in terms of turnovers, not every play action needs to be a boot, because I've been supportive of the boot stuff, but if they're going to start blitzing that, you need to start like play action, keep him in the pocket, or play action out of shotgun, maybe move him around a little bit, play action out of pistol, like diversify your play action game too before that gets predictable. So I know that Darnold has had some struggles lately, but overall he's had a very good season. And if you want to talk about turnovers, and yes, Purdy to a fault is an absolute believer in his arm. And that can get him in trouble sometimes. In a way, it can get in trouble for Sam. But with Purdy, like I said, when he anticipates and that anticipation, that timing is off, that's when things can get erratic for him. So on a possibly rainy night, I don't know what the weather is going to be. I'd be more worried if I'm a 49ers fan about Purdy having some turnovers than Darnold having turnovers against a defense that has 6 takeaways or 6 interceptions all season.
It's definitely going to be an interesting way to see how this goes. I'm of the camp that I think part of Sam's issue with his turnovers is to the point of, I think Kubiak is shell-shocked. I spoke about it earlier today on my show with Jason Aponte from SB Nations for the 49ers, and we talked about, from his perspective, what he thinks is wrong with Seattle's offense, because Jason studies the West Coast offense and Kyle Shanahan and McVay and what they've done, and he goes, Kubiak, he even says, Kubiak has the least developed drop back passing pure progression system out of the group. And he goes, it puts you in problems. And I think that's part of the thing where teams have figured it out. You look at the first interception Sam threw against the Rams on Thursday night. That defender baited Sam into that with alignment, with understanding they're not going to go by the sticks. They're going to sit and throw underneath it on 3rd and 8. And it was the same thing at the goal line when you call a double rat defender drop from your tackle and your edge. That is you knowing tendency and taking advantage of it. And that's really good by Chris Shula, but that also shows a limitation in Clint Kubiak. And again, and I know Brandon, you and me have talked about this with the interception thing. NFL right now is very much like it was, in the 80s. When you go back and look at the stats of guys like Dan Marino and John Elway and quarterbacks back then, they had double-digit interceptions because defense had found a way to stifle the pass game a little bit and make it harder on quarterbacks to read post-snap. It's kind of happening again in that way, and offenses and quarterbacks are struggling. You look at guys like Josh Allen and guys that have got double-digit interceptions this year. Sam's right in that bunch with them. There's only 2 guys with single-digit interceptions that are regular starters, and there's one guy now. That was Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, but I'm pretty sure, Stafford's at 8, so he's still underneath it. We're good. But that's where you kind of get into that realm of 2 guys out of the majority are the only ones. Everyone else is up in the double digits. I think it's just something they're going to have to learn to live with. So, Dan,
real quick on that, Bryce, to your point, just to touch on your thing there. I think that, they're not being very progression reading in this, but also within what you're seeing with these teams is they're biting on the first bob that you set in the water, offensively speaking, right? Misdirection. We've got to incorporate misdirection in this game because we're getting so much of them flowing to where they feel the play side's going, because it's so true to where you are going the play side. And putting things stylistically into this for Sam to try and, I called it eye manipulation with Bryce Young. He eye manipulates it like a mofo to then get over to the flat route throw. I'm going to get those linebackers pulled down, making them think I'm going through that read when my whole intention the whole time is to go to the flat route. And we don't do that. It's a lot of when you see Sam's eyes to the point on that throw in that Rams game, boom, I lock on that throw. I'm letting it off. I'm going. There's just no this even breaks down to Sam when he breaks the pocket. He doesn't pump fake. Like you throw one pump fake as you break the pocket, you'll have that defender jumping up the backboard and you run right past him. But there's sometimes we forget that you can hide stuff a little bit here, guys. It doesn't have to be a full tell post snap about what you're doing.
No, it definitely. So, I'll put it this way out to the group, and Dan, I'll start with you. Which QB do you trust more to protect the ball late in this game?
Well, I don't watch every snap that Brock Purdy takes, but I do watch every snap that Sam Darnold takes. So I'll answer it this way. I trust Sam. And I think his superpower that he has shown this year is he has that, to quote the great Ted Lasso, goldfish memory. Like I'd be a lot more worried if after these interceptions, he shrank. And not only doesn't he do that, but he comes back strong, even in the Rams game with the worst interceptions you'll ever see. The first loss, he comes back, leads them on the long touchdown drive, and then the last drive that put him in position to kick the last field goal. We saw it in the Colts game at the end of the first half and at the end of the game. Certainly we saw it in that Rams game with 2 interceptions. Again, they trick him, they get him on drops, and he's still, it's almost like, I've said since we signed him, he has so many similarities in my opinion and characteristics that he shares with Matt Hasselbeck. I just see a lot of similarities in how they play the game. Sam has a better arm. He's physically stronger, some of those things. But I almost trusted when Matt threw a bad pick, unless it was in overtime to the Packers, Alex Bannister, because there wasn't an opportunity to come back from that one. I almost trusted him more. I'm like, let's go. Let's get him back out on the field again. He's going to come out and deal. And so even if he does turn the ball over, and I do think, we sit here and it's easy to say, and I've been saying it for weeks. I did a show last week where I simply laid it out. If Sam Darnold if the Seahawks don't turn the ball over anymore in 2026, they win the Super Bowl. I'm convinced of that. Like that is their Achilles heel. That's probably unlikely. This kind of is who they are. To expect them to just wean all of the turnovers out of their game at this point might be unrealistic. It's, can you balance those out with big plays and can you come back strong from them? I trust Sam implicitly at the end of games.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mookie, I'll give it to you on this one.
Yeah, as far as do I trust Sam or Purdy more? Well, it's in the context of this year, Darnold in 2 of his 3 losses had essentially a game-losing turnover. The one in the 49ers game that really is on Lucas. And then the second one where it got tipped to the line and then it hit Levante David's arms for an interception. But Darnold he beat up on himself a little bit, saying that he could have changed the protection, I believe, or changed the play call and then hit Horton on the other side of the field. Okay, fine. But then the other side of Sam Darnold, the game-winning drive against Arizona, which honestly was just one throw to JSN, but it's still a perfect throw. And then 2 quick plays against the Colts that got him immediately in the field goal range with him and Rashid Shaheed. The Rams game, the second one, of course, that was the biggie. Like if people weren't convinced that Darnold could lead a winning drive, much in the way like Gino had all those game-winning drives, and people are going, Gino's going to give the game away. It's almost like until somebody is as good as Russell Wilson or better than Russell Wilson, any of the post-Russ quarterbacks are going to get some significant doubts as to whether they can deliver in the clutch. What Sam did on that drive was elite stuff. I mean, that throw to Cooper Kupp is probably his best throw of the season.
Yeah,
with taking a massive shot and delivering that on a rope for Cooper Kupp to catch, keep the feet in bounds, get the first down. And then even the throw to JSN in the back of the end zone for a touchdown. Dart in stride, and then the 2-point conversion. There's your pure progression read. Didn't panic. First read's not open, second read's not open, third read's not open. Oh, there's Eric Saubert. Game over. So I think that Darnold is capable of leading a game-winning drive. It's a late game situation, and he can protect the ball. And Purdy has had his game. I mean, he just had it last week. I mean, they're down by 3. They need a touchdown to take the lead. Wasn't even close to getting picked, but that Bears defense without turnovers is pretty bad. He's led some other game-winning drives before, but in his only loss as a starter this year, it's kind of crazy to think about. He's missed so much time that he is 7-1 as a starter this season. That one loss was to Jacksonville. He turned it over 3 times, and I believe Jacksonville had a chance to go up by 8 or something. They missed a field goal or whatever. Purdy got strip sacked, fumbled, game over. His 3rd turnover of the game, game, set, match. They end up losing. So I also remember against Minnesota a couple years back, he threw a couple of interceptions late in a game that were trailing by 5 or 6 points, just overthrew it. That's all she wrote. So he's had some late game collapses before. He hasn't had to have a lot of game winning drives. That's the thing with Purdy. Usually they're up by so much that they're never really in a position on a week to week basis where they need him in 2-minute situations. Sam has delivered a lot this year, and he had a few game winning drives for Minnesota last year. And I think that Donald can get it done. I think that he can protect the ball late and kind of avenge what happened in week 1.
Brandon, I'll leave it to you on this. You're the final guy to answer this one.
I think Mookie probably encapsulated it pretty well as far as what I would think on this. I think especially his point about the front-running city that Brock Purdy's been able to live upon since he took over in that San Francisco team. Yes, last year wasn't a good year, but he walked on the scene, and that's an offense. And we've seen this with how it's built with us in the earlier part of the year. This is a type of team-building concept with Shanahan's offense that's going to try to get ahead of you and then press down upon you. It's not really an offense that's built to be playing from behind. So I would wonder exactly how many really true opportunities when we really break it down for all the starts Brock's had, of these chances he's had and failure rate and all that. With that said, everything said about Sam is true about what he's put on the board this year and actual experience. That Niner drive, for instance, which is absolutely not upon Sam. Let's make sure we're really clear with this. That's not on Sam when he's got his head looking to the left, the reads to the left, and Bosa's then essentially coming from a backside position. I know it's not a blindside rush, but he's not seeing it. And that's by the where the read's taking him, as well as he had driven you up the field 50 yards to get you in that position. The Tampa Bay game, when it went off that helmet, which maybe it could have changed the protection, maybe not, but he was driving you up in the field in that moment to go get you the score as well. Even the Rams game at the end, where you got a touchdown drive, you then got back on the next drive to get you to a 60-yarder there with 50 seconds from the half-yard line. Even in his moments when he's failed, it's been but just barely, and he's doing a lot of successful things within that environment to get you there. So I have the utmost confidence and faith in him.
Yeah, when it comes to me, guys, honestly, on this conversation, like both quarterbacks seem to be the same to me in a little bit. Like I in this particular matchup here, trust Sam more because of the defense he's going to have to go against. And that Niners defense isn't good. It's a bend, but hopefully we don't break kind of defense with the amount of injuries they've had. And yes, it's gotten, to this point for them, but if it's late in the game, I trust Sam more against that than I do Purdy having to go against Seattle's. And that's kind of how I look at it at this point. And I think if Sam has a moment in this game where he does do it, leads the team down the field to kick a game-winning field goal and win, I think that should really put to end that conversation about Sam's ability to be clutch, Sam's ability to be trusted and to be able to protect the ball at points in games. And, guys are going to throw picks. It's what happens. It's a 50-50 crapshoot. Every time you throw the ball anyways, it's going to end up in someone else's hands. So we'll move on to the next subject here, but I think it'll be an interesting topic. So let's talk about the defense. Our dark side versus their offensive juggernaut currently. The 49ers offense has been on a roll. And I'll start with you on this one, Brandon. What part of San Francisco's offense stresses the Seattle defensive principles the most structurally? And I know you've talked a lot about that crossing route, but is there anything else in that offense that really you think stresses out the principles of Mike Macdonald's defense?
Well, it's actually surprising that they're not necessarily a high usage play action team in what they look to do. So what it really comes down to is that they do get you to kind of have to have your eye on that run game prior to the snap, whether the play action's coming or not, and then kind of feast off of a little bit of that post snap. You saw it with the Bears. I thought Collinsworth did a very good job of capturing this well, even though people give him such a hard time. And really the predicament that Bears defense was in, where unfortunately, and I don't have a good way of getting out of this, you've got to a little bit just try to roll the table a little bit on this, on linebackers dropping to depth, linebackers climbing up on McCaffrey, linebackers going to, and not kind of go one trick on that. And it's quite frankly, there's not a way to really do one, but not the other. There's not really a way, quite honestly, on this, even with dropping 7 men in coverage, to be able to get the clearance to the over routes and then have not the underneath stuff. I'm not talking about the flat throws to McCaffrey, but he runs those little option routes to the middle of the field, or he just sits down in the middle of the field. And so you have to just kind of throw it a little bit around, but that's where they're going to make some money at times. That's where they're going to find some headway. And you just got to take your price with that. When you had the Ernest Jones in cutting where he jumps the route in the first game on the over route, McCaffrey it does get picked up by Drake Thomas on the blitz. And so that's what kind of saved you on that play with not giving him then the outlet throw underneath. But you're not always going to get that. And sometimes you're just going to have to trust the fact that you're going to catch Brock with his eyes trying to go down the field. It's also where I come back to that JC Horn route where he undercut from across the field. Okay, we don't blitz. Okay, we're not likely to stack the box much with Shanahan, and we have it with Mike, even going back to the Baltimore game he played 2 years ago. What we do is stir the coverages. So let's stir the tank. Let's run in some of the exotic coverages that we have in place to try and really throw Brock off from some of the traditional coverage looks he will tend to see post-snap. And that's where I think you could make some headway.
No, and I think that's a fair way of taking, some of that away from the 49ers. And in this situation, Dan, is this a chaos game for Seattle's defense or a game of discipline? Are they going to create a whole bunch of, looks and different things that are going to create problems? Or is this a game where they're going to play to their principles more than any this year?
They're going to be disciplined, and that's going to cause chaos.
Well done. Done.
That's how they do it. They play their stuff, like Brandon said early, but they do it violently, and they arrive with bad intentions. Bryce, you and I talked about this after the Carolina game a few days ago. I am just increasingly week by week impressed by the physicality of the secondary players in the Seattle defense. The way that they come up, and not just tackle, which wasn't one of their strengths the first third of the season, but my goodness, they were open field tackles early in that game on Carolina. Might have kept that thing in check when the Seahawks seemed to come out flat a little bit. But the way they take on blocks and deconstruct blocks, I mean, we see it at every level, and we see everyone doing it. I mean, Spoon's been doing that now for 3 years. We see Nick Emenwari come up and take on a block with one arm and make the tackle with the other, or completely blow up a play in the flat and create an opportunity for someone else to rally to the football. I think what we've seen all season long are the fruits of the continuity from all the starters and the guys who played a lot of snaps last year coming back in year 2 of Mike Macdonald's defense. He himself has admitted many times, he says, this is not an easy defense to learn. We saw that his 2 years in Baltimore. It took about half a season for them to kind of dial it in, and then it was the second year that it really all came together. Now we're 16 games into year 2, and they're as healthy as they've been all year, really. I mean, Kobe Bryant's not going to be out there, but as we said earlier, Ty Okada is playing at a level that has us thinking maybe he's the safety long-term and Kobe Bryant walks in free agency. And that's going to allow them to play free and easy. They're not going to have to think. They're going to know this offense. They're going to know their rules, and they're going to be able to play violent and fly around and cause havoc. And I think there are going to be negative plays. There are going to be penetration plays, and they are going to take the ball away.
Mookie, where does Seattle's defense have to win first for everything else to work on Saturday? Is it they've got to keep Purdy in the pocket and get after him? Is it take away the run game? If you had to put your staple on it, what's the one thing, or your stamp on it, what's the one thing they got to take away first to win this game?
I think limiting the run game has been a huge problem for the Seahawks against the 49ers for years now. Now, they did an all right job in the first matchup. McCaffrey, I think, averaged somewhere a little bit under 4 yards per carry, but that's kind of been McCaffrey's season. Outside of these last couple of games, he has struggled to have these huge explosive runs, but he's on his way to possibly a second 1,000-yard rushing and 1,000-yard receiving season. I think actually a better way to put it is to stymie the short passing game that involves so much yards after catch for San Francisco, whether that's McCaffrey, whether that's Pearsall. And the receiver I'm forgetting, and I shouldn't because he's one of my favorite non-Seahawks players in the league, is Juwan Jennings, who absolutely wrecked Seattle last year. And he was basically the only dude in the win over San Francisco. Seattle really had a hard time stopping. So I think that's for the 49ers, they are going to take their shots, but we see how much damage they do with their screen passes, with their quick plays, the slants and the little in-cutting routes that turn little gains into big gains. Seattle's done a really good job because of their tackling, because of their discipline, of not allowing a lot of yards after catch throughout the season, at least in the meaningful game action. I totally discard garbage time. They did a pretty good job preventing the big yards after catch plays in the first meeting. They just got beaten with too many deep shots. And by saying I mostly mean Reek Woollett. And I'd like to think that he has got that bug, that bug away. He's clear of all that. So I think it's going to be of huge importance for them to don't let the little plays become either first downs or yards that gain enough for them to stay ahead of schedule. Because what gave them trouble in the second game against the Rams in the first half, how many of the little run plays were not getting 15 yards? In fact, they didn't have a run longer than 10 yards all night. But if you're getting 7 yards on 1st and 10, 6 yards on 2nd and 8, the playbook opens up. And San Francisco is kind of the same way in terms of their ability to stay ahead of schedule. And even still, they can absolutely shred you on 3rd and long. I believe they lead the league in 3rd and long conversions. But Seattle's done such a good job at defending 3rd and long that I like my chances of at least meeting them at the summit and kind of knocking them off if they can get them into unfavorable down and distances. What you're going to have to kind of accept is Purdy's going to hold the ball for a long time. He consistently has like 3+ seconds time to throw.
Yeah.
And in the 3 matchups that Macdonald has had against Purdy in Baltimore, low blitz rate, but he was still able to play some funky coverages, and the corners were on point. They got some tip passes. He threw 3 interceptions or 4? I think he threw 4, and Darnold came in relief and threw a 5th. Last year against San Francisco in the first meeting, he didn't blitz a lot, but they got picked apart. But in the win over San Francisco in Santa Clara, he blitzed at 40%, which that is totally unlike Macdonald. But Kittle didn't play. And I think that did matter a bit. And Debo was not Debo. And I don't think Pearsall had even played yet. So I expect him to not blitz a lot. I think that we're still going to see the odd strategic blitz. He's not going to be reckless with it. But I think that for the Seahawks, it's kind of winning at the early part of the line of scrimmage, not even in the trenches, just preventing the short games from becoming the bigger ones, as has been the case so many times over the years.
So, guys, I'll put it to you this way. What's an acceptable point total for this Seattle defense to give up to this 49er juggernaut? Like we've said earlier, they're going to get theirs, but where is that kind of, okay, that's something where we can still, as an offense, be able to, kind of manage and be able to stay in the game? For me, it's 24 points. If Seattle gives up potentially more than 24, it's going to be hard for them, I think, in this game to stay ahead. What about you, Brandon? What's your thoughts?
That was exactly going to be my number. So I'm not meaning to jump on the back of yours, but I think that's kind of the magical number. I trust in this team to set 27 points in this defense, watching that Chicago offense work its way through them. I just don't think that they have a lot of ability to hold back. I mean, no Bosa. That's when we turned around last year and Gino was able to go get the win. And then you throw on top of it no Warner, who when he was out for the one drive in this last game against the Niners was the one time you went and got a touchdown in that game. I think that it's just going to be kind of a long day at the office for that Niner defense. And so 24 points goes and gets you the win, I think.
Mookie, what about you?
Yeah, there's this very popular show way back in the day that was starring Kiefer Sutherland called 24. And that was kind of what I had in mind for the upper limits for Seattle to allow. Yeah, so I think it pretty much is 24 points. You can almost disregard the first game. And I mean on both sides, just because of the people who didn't play, the people who did play, and just kind of the nature of week 1 feel out stuff. So when you think about the Seahawks offense, are they going to throw one play action pass again the whole game? If that happens again, then I will totally change my mind about not firing Kubiak after one season. But if, that somebody did watch 24. All right. Thank you, Addicted to Hot.
I heard they're rebooting that show. Did I hear that right?
Oh, gosh.
I think it's coming back.
What a shock that they're rebooting a show from a long time ago.
God. That show's got to stay in its era. It was for an era and a time.
Yes, I would be shocked if we had another 17-13 game. And if a team is going to be held under 20s, I think it's going to be San Francisco. Now, they are playing offense at an exceptional level, but how many great defenses have they played lately? Really, it's just Cleveland, and Cleveland gave them some hard times on in that game. It's just that their special teams gifted San Francisco a couple of short fields. Yeah. So the last great defense I think that they played
Texans
was the Texans. Well, they did play the Rams, but that was the Rams with Mac Jones starting, and I think
are the Rams a good defense at this point though? Do we know that now as a certifiable fact at this point?
I would say that they need Quentin Lake back, and that's part of the reason their defense has fallen off. But That was like a 42-26 game, but Mac Jones threw for over 300 and like 33 of 39 passing. It's just they had turnovers and they could not stop Matthew Stafford. But they played Houston, lost 26-15, and then against Jacksonville, they scored 21 points, but they were playing from a deficit, and that's a game that Purdy started. And then against Seattle in the first game, of course, they scored 17. But this is going to be as big a challenge to me for the 49ers offense as it is like, oh, the Seahawks defense are playing this juggernaut 49ers offense. Well, this 49ers offense is playing the Seahawks defense that, with the exception of maybe a couple of games worth out of 16, have been playing some of their best football in franchise history defensively. So, yeah, I think 24 is about as high as it can go for Seattle. If it gets any higher, I think they'll probably lose. And it's more just, I fear that the offense might not have like a 30-something point game in them, even with the Niners' defensive struggles, just because of some of the issues they've had throughout the last 6-7 weeks in terms of starting slowly.
All right, Dan, are you going to pick the same 2 digits here as everyone else so far?
Why would I do that? The acceptable number of points that the 49ers can score in this game is 1 less than the Seahawks.
He priced to right us.
Wow.
Spoiler alert. I'm gonna give away my prediction that we'll make at the end of the show. So I'll let you figure it out. The 49ers cannot score more than 26 points in order for the Seahawks to win.
All right. Okay. Well, gentlemen, let's move down here a little bit, and we'll talk about these offensive lines, because obviously there's a bit of an injury situation on the 49ers front, and there's some concern on the Seahawks front with our backup left tackle right now, and sounds like he's going to play, but we're not sure what Jones is going to do, and we don't know if Williams off his hamstring is going to play. So, Brandon, I'll start with you. What is the single biggest pass protection key for Seattle in this game? I know the 49ers defensive front isn't as scary as it is when they got Bosa and Michael Williams in that group, but what do you think the biggest key is? An interior being solidified? Is it Josh Jones out there on his own and how much help he may or may not need? What is the single biggest key for you?
I just don't let Saleh play games up front and getting you confused into changing your protections with the stacked boxes. He doesn't blitz. That's the bottom line of it. And, maybe he can run a little bit of some zone drop stuff from the defensive lineman and bring this guy over here from that side. I'd like to make him show me he's going to do that. He likes to do a lot of, I'm going to show you. And then he kind of just pulls it out, like right at the end there, and I prefer to operate from look four coming. We can operate with that faith. I don't need to keep the chippers in there. We've had issues at times with this offense growing stagnant because you're running chippers and then the chippers can't get out into the flats, get out into space, into their secondary routes. So now you've end up with 3 guys into 7-man coverage looks, which is no good. And you are going to get with this Niner team, because of the lack of blitzing, 7-man coverage looks. So don't chip, don't change your protections. Force them to show you they're going to blitz. Be aware of if you're Sam. Sam's got to take his time up at the line of scrimmage. Kubiak mentioned in his presser today, you've got to get the call in quick and let Sam make some assessments up there, not get in late, and he's got to get the thing snapped. But I think that'd be the main place.
Dan, I'll go to you on this one. Which trench matchup are you watching that could swing the outcome? If you're looking at the matchup, either Seahawks D-line versus 49ers offensive line or vice versa, which one for you kind of circled that you're going to pay attention to?
I don't know that it's any one-on-one matchup, because I don't think the 49ers have that guy right now. Even Bryce Huff doesn't look like the Bryce Huff of a few years ago. They just don't have that dude. Even if Nick Bosa was healthy, then we'd be sitting here talking about being able to focus on him, and certainly that would create some opportunities for other guys. But, they have 18 sacks all season long, and only 12 and a half of those have come from players who are going to play on Saturday. Like they just don't. Here they're dead last in the league in sacks. They're dead last in the league in quarterback hits. They're 31st in pressure rate. They're 29th in pass rush win rate. And as Brandon said, they're 29th in blitz rate. I don't know that there's anybody up front that they have to account for individually. I think Brandon nailed it. The Seahawks have been caught numerous times. You and I even talked about it earlier today against Carolina a couple of times. Sometimes they don't pick up stunts and twists very well. They need to do that. And then I think maybe the key is just as simple as saying they just need a competent game out of Josh Jones. And, I'm not concerned about whether or not he's going to play. It's interesting to see some of the guys covering the team. Even Brady Henderson just tweeted 3 hours ago that the Seahawks might be playing with their third offensive tackle. They let Josh Jones stand behind the podium yesterday. They don't usually do that with guys that aren't going to play. I went back and watched the last drive against the Panthers. He never left the field. He never went to the tent. He wasn't limping. He didn't even seem bothered by anything. And then Mike Macdonald himself just said he's banged up.
Mike plays that injury thing there, Dan, doesn't he? He plays with that. He does that little bit of like, I want them to prepare for this guy and that guy and this guy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's call him up to the let's sign Amari Kite to the roster so they think he's going to play. It's they just need a competent game from him. He's been good. He hasn't been great, but that's not what you expect from a swing tackle, right? That's what they brought him in for. I just think he has to be good enough.
So Mookie, the last part I'll ask you on this, if one team clearly wins this trench battle, does that in some respects decide this game more than anything?
Oh, absolutely. I think the interior for both is going to be huge. So Trent Williams probably not playing out at left tackle. Okay, fine. I would be shocked if his backup, who is it, Pleasance, ends up just completely dominating whoever is matched up against him on the Seahawks side at the edge. But in terms of the interior, if they can push the pocket back on Purdy and kind of get him to panic a bit, that'd be great. But also what Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, and Jaron Reed can do in terms of run defense, I think is going to be key. Seems like Brandon Peely is more or less out of the rotation these days, and that they prefer Riley Mills. So they're downsizing a little bit. And they're even playing Mike Morris, spot snaps here and there in non-garbage time.
I wonder if we're going to see Mills at all in this game. I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on this, but it seems like the pattern with him these last couple of weeks since he came back is they play him early and then we don't see him again. It's almost as if they're using him for load management. And in a game like this, you're not going to worry about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the same kind of applies to Mike Morris because he's just there. I mean, there are few spectacular plays where he truly stands out, so unless it's preseason, in which case he's amazing. But I think that this could still be a game where if they could have Peely active. I think he was on the practice squad on week 1 still for that game. But anyway, the interior on the flip side for Seattle, I think, is way more important than the possibility that Amari Kite could start at left tackle. We watched Amari Kite in preseason and in person at camp, and he didn't look out of place for an undrafted rookie free agent. Now, there's a bit of a soft landing with San Francisco's pass rush. It's just not good. And you can't blame Saleh for that. Mykel Williams, ACL tear, done for the year. Same applies to Nick Bosa. You lose your top two, then you're going to be doing a hell of a lot to try and manufacture a pass rush with your third and fourth guys. And I don't know if Keon White's going to play either, although he's kind of been up and down since going to San Francisco. But it's clear their pass rush is not good. But in the first game, I should note that as much as Saleh does not blitz a lot, his third highest blitz rate of the year came against Seattle, which is still 28%, which is not incredibly high. That's probably like league average. And then Darnold ended up being their third most pressured quarterback. And Darnold got rid of the ball quickly, like 2.59 seconds is the quickest, I believe, of any quarterback they have played this year. So the stunts and all the games that, as Brandon said, they like to run up front. Seattle's had a hard time picking up stunts pretty much all season. And we're starting to see a little bit of a rookie wall with Gray Zabel, but it's actually, to me, more in the run blocking than the pass pro. But it's going to be really on this offensive line to pick those up so that there is no confusion that leads to free rushers and easy sacks or easy pressures for a team that kind of struggles when it's just a traditional rush. And I will also note, when they are struggling for pass rush and the quarterback is picking apart, Saleh will blitz more. So his highest blitz rates of the season, other than Darnold, are Caleb Williams, CJ Stroud, and Matthew Stafford in the second game. And the end result had to eke out by 2 yards a win against Chicago, and they get 38 points out of that game. They lost against Houston, and Stroud threw for over 300 yards. And they lost to Stafford. They blitzed him almost half of his dropbacks, and you just never do that. It's a terrible strategy. He throws for 4 touchdowns. The Rams score 42 points. So I think the best case scenario for Seattle is that the passing game clicks enough that they invite the sort of pressure and risks that Seattle can exploit. Otherwise, if there was ever a time for the Seahawks offense to get going again earlier in games and start being more aggressive with downfield shots, it's probably this one, because the San Francisco pass rush isn't good and their safeties are a bit of a liability, particularly Jair Brown and how often he gives up big plays. I'm sure every Seahawks fan in this chat is absolutely crying out for JSN to score a touchdown Diamador Lenore, though.
Absolutely.
100%. 100%. Dan, by the way, to your point on load management, Dan, with Riley Mills, they actually had a meeting up even edge snaps in the last game. So, it's definitely just kind of putting him out there to fill up some space right now.
Yeah.
So before we get to our next topic, guys, I just want to mention there's 1,200 people viewing this show, which is absolutely outstanding.
Oh.
There you go, Brandon. Go for it.
Let's go, guys.
So if you guys are, depending on which channel you're watching from, sub up to the other channel. Sub up to Dan Viens at Seahawks Forever, Brandon Cain at the Hawk Nest, me, Bryce Coutts at the Hawk's Eye if you like the content and the discussion. And as well, go head over to Field Goals and check out Mookie Alexander and the group over there and all the work they do at that great website. So thank you again for all your guys' support and Happy New Year to everybody. But let's move into this discussion, guys. And I think, most people would assume we're going to talk about Kyle Shanahan and Mike Macdonald because they're the kind of headline. I want to get your guys' thoughts on the matchup between Clint Kubiak and Robert Saleh. And so I will start with you on this one, Mookie. Who do you expect to have to make more halftime adjustments in this game, Saleh or Clint Kubiak? And I know the trend right now is Clint, but do you think there's an opportunity that Saleh is going to have to make more adjustments come halftime?
He might. I just don't know right now with Kubiak and this offense, because I note since the Rams game, they are, I believe, 32nd in EPA drop per dropback. And you can't get much worse than 32nd. In fact, you can't get worse at all. But in the second half, suddenly they're much better. And another thing that has been noted during the 6-game winning streak, so I can leave out the Rams loss, is that their field position has been not great in the first half. And in the second half, they get turnovers, they get big kick returns, or there's special teams errors on the other side. And Seattle just eats up short fields. So the offense is not terrible right now. It's just middling. The slow starts, I know there have been people on Twitter and even at Field Goal saying, is Kubiak holding something back in the playbook? Well, I hope he isn't, because that's a terrible way to go through football games, which is we're going to forfeit the first half, hope our defense is still great, and then the second half we'll start running the good plays. I missed the first few weeks of the season when they were up like 31-0, 35-0. To me, that's way, way better. But I think the onus for adjustments could be on Kubiak. And I think the scripted plays are going to tell me a lot about who's going to be making more adjustments, because other than the Rams game, the second one, I don't think they put up an opening drive touchdown throughout this win streak. I think they've had some field goal drives, they've had or punts, but that's it. But the Atlanta game and the Carolina game, 3 straight passes, one of which, the Atlanta game, they're deep in their own territory. And Bryce, you've talked about it. Like, throw that out. Like, please don't do that. In fact, they almost got a safety because Darnold got sacked at like the 1-yard line. With the way that they're running the ball a little bit better, I'd like to see them kind of figure out the running game quicker. And in fact, I think they figured out the run game quicker against Carolina. I mean, that first quarter, Cain had a couple of explosives. Charbonnet converted a 3rd and 15. And then they just have these lulls where they get into we're just going to only pass. Or if we're going to run the ball, it's going to be in an unfavorable down and distance. So Kubiak has got to find his rhythm again, find his flow properly, and just kind of adjust accordingly in terms of the fact that defenses are playing them differently. They're more nickel and dime fronts that they're facing, formations that they're facing. Teams are blitzing Sam Darnold more. They just are. He's already a very frequently blitzed quarterback, but Carolina blitzed him on over half of his dropbacks. So I wouldn't be shocked if Saleh tries to blitz a little bit more, just with the way that the Seahawks aren't responding to it at an efficient level. So, yeah, Kubiak versus Saleh is like Kubiak's biggest test. People are going to put this on Sam as like, hey, you got to prove you're the guy by beating San Francisco. This is maybe partially true, but for Clint Kubiak, if you want to prove your worth as a potential head coaching candidate, beating somebody as well-respected as Robert Saleh, acknowledging the 49ers defense isn't very good for a variety of reasons, I think it's a huge test for him to see, what have you learned from week 1?
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest question, is what has he learned from week 1? And Brandon, how does Clint Kubiak, I wouldn't say punish, but how does Clint Kubiak take advantage of some of the principles within Robert Saleh's defense with this offensive playbook he has, considering Robert Saleh knows a lot of it? Obviously, he's a disciple off of Kyle and even off of Mike and Gary and what he does. So Saleh's gonna have a good plan. How do you see that kind of cat and mouse game playing out, and how does Clint maybe get the upper hand in that?
I don't really see with Saleh a guy that is really going to throw a lot at you compared to other defensive coordinators. This is a Coach Carroll acolyte at the end of the day. Mookie elaborated on the fact that when they have gone to a semi-high blitz rate, and we're talking high 20%, we're still talking middle of the road in NFL terms, that they haven't had a lot of success in doing so. This is part of what I always talked about with Coach Carroll. You don't just wake up one day and decide we're going to dial up the blitz stuff in our playbook when blitzing is not in your DNA, when in fact your whole DNA is structured towards safety and protecting against the deep ball inherently. So with this, it really comes down to being patient offensively, to taking what the defense gives you, and they will give you the short passing. They'll, hey, can you earn your way up this field a little bit? I don't think that he's going to come in this and blitz at you. I don't think he's going to risk stuff on the back end. Don't think he trusts his corners or safeties in the back end to be holding up in that way that you're going to ask him to do so there. So can you stay patient? You get in that Rams game, you got a little bit too much pushy down the field. A little much too pushy. Not enough of just taking what the defense gave you. This is where, to me, Kubiak overthinks some things sometimes. Did so to me in the Rams game, and just in that first one especially. And you had the blueprint for how the 49ers took them down, and you just were like, yeah, I'm going to ignore that. Yeah, we run the same offense, but I'm going to ignore that. Didn't make a lot of sense. So stay patient, stay in the context of your offense. Don't get away from the run game, as a couple of these other guys have talked about here, and that has also been another modus operandi of this offense at times. With as good as the run game is going, stay with it. I thought we had a lot more success recently in the run game, and not only the bottom line in getting more rushing yards, but more consistency in the rushes. Less of the -1 yards, less of the 0 yards, -2 yards. That's still there a little bit, but it really got removed in recent weeks. And then now when you're looking at the third down conversion rates, which will create those long, successful drives, the conversion rates have improved on the back half of the schedule. So early on in the year, you'd see 2 of 13, 3 of 14. Now last week, we get 9 of 16. That's what you're kind of starting to see. And I think with that, you're going to have the success. So staying patient, staying in who you are, knowing the Niners aren't going to throw a lot of different things at you. It's not contextually in his book to do what Mike Macdonald does on the coverages constantly. They're going to sometimes show you what they're going to run. They're going to run some stagnant coverages. Cover 3, cover 1, cover 6. That's kind of what you're going to get by and large part throughout the course of this game from this Niner team. So it ain't that elaborate, man. It isn't. It's just, can you execute?
Yeah, and that's going to be the interesting thing to see if we can do that execution. So Dan, in this chess match with, Clint Kubiak and Robert Saleh, both Mookie and Brandon brought up really good points. What I've got to ask you is, do we see a continuation of this running back by committee kind of situation with Ken Walker and Charbonnet? Or do we see it early on, they figure out who the guy is and commit to it even earlier than we saw in Carolina? And how much of this running game do they lean on this Saturday versus this 49ers defense?
Well, I think it's huge. I think, they've been telling us all year who they want to be. And for the first 8-9 games, it didn't look like who they were going to be. And now there are signs. 2 of their best running totals of the season have happened in the last 3 weeks. And I don't think there's any reason to change the script now. Like, not the opening script. Yeah, I want to change that. But as far as how they're using the running backs, I thought Carolina was a really good example of riding the hot hand. It seemed early on in that one that they were intent on getting Walker the ball early and often, but it just wasn't happening for him. And it started to happen for Zach Charbonnet. He had the big run on 3rd and 15 early that kind of set the tone and got him out of a hole there. And Seahawks haven't been good at 3rd and 7+. So to be able to run the football in that situation successfully was big. And then late in the game, they really just handed it to Zach and turned it over to him. And they did that thing that they told us from the very onset of training camp they wanted to do. And that is be able to ice games away and run the football even when the other team was expecting them to be running the football. They were able to do that successfully. I think we'll see a similar, I'll use that word again, a similar script. I think they'll start with Walker early, test that defense, see if they can get him going, because at the end of the day, I think we'd all agree he's the more explosive back. He's the one that's more capable of hitting the home run. He might strike. He's like the old school DH, right? He's going to strike out more often, but he's certainly more capable of hitting a home run than Charbonnet is. And Charbonnet's the guy that's going to kind of get more of the base hits and kind of beat you with doubles. And they'll see how if Ken Walker takes control of this one, more like he did against the Rams in Week 16, then I think they'll ride with him. And I don't see any reason to change that now.
Yeah. The thing, Dan, obviously we did a film lab today that'll come out about this run game. And I think the one, and Brandon brought it up as well, talking about this wide nine. Like, this is a prime opportunity to run the ball and be successful with it. And me and Brandon talked, last week about this offense, and Brandon, you brought up just now about how it looked more consistent in this running game. There weren't nearly as many negative runs in this game and negative plays that kind of get you off schedule. The biggest thing for me in this is, can Clint Kubiak survive 3rd and long? Like, can he not get us in those situations? And in some respects, be really predictable in what he wants to call the style of run in certain situations. Like, and that doesn't mean put K9 and Charbonnet on the field and run a reverse. Like, that's not the idea here. Or put the Milrow package back out there. I know, Brandon, it gives you PTSD every time we see some weird formation. You and me both go, oh boy, this is going to be an adventure, and it's not going to go the right way at all. But we have to be successful in 1st and 2nd down, and we can't get predictable in 1st and 2nd on what we're going to do. And that's the way I think we're going to avoid those 3rd and longs, because as much as the Niners don't blitz, and as much as they have a very kind of, I don't say vanilla, but basic concept defense, getting in 3rd and +8, where we've kind of lived recently in the last month and so here, it's really caused us some problems, because to the point that we've talked about earlier, there is no true drop back, pure progression system really built in that's successful, that Kubiak can feel comfortable going to, and that Sam clearly feels comfortable with. And so when you kind of hem yourself in on that passing game, and you get put in those 3rd and longs, it really makes things challenging.
Absolutely. Yep. Were you direct? No, I agree with you. I'm sorry. I don't know if I was supposed to talk or not, but yeah, I agree with you, everything you said. So I don't have a lot of data on top of it, other than just, I would say that I would tend to agree with it. I just think it's positive plays. That's part of the take, what the defense gives you, down in and down out. Don't go too much big game hunting in this at all times. At times, lean to the fact this defense stylistically wants to make you prove it up the football field, so stylistically lean into that. This is how the Coach Carroll system got upended. Is Coach Carroll's system was wholly built upon the offense is always going to get impatient at some point in the game. They're going to take that shot or two down the field, and we are going to have the teeth ready there when they do so. And what happened with teams is the teams just started to structurally be patient and just take the dink and dunk over the whole course of the game. You got to take the dink, you got to take the dunk, you got to take the positive play and get yourself into 3rd and makeables, because not only is that better for your offense, to your point, Bryce, that's also where the good teams that are great on 3rd down live, is in 3rd and short, not in 3rd and long.
Mm-hmm. All right, gentlemen. Well, I'll put it this way. What will it take to win? Mookie, I'll start with you. Give me 3 things, in your opinion, that it'll take for the Seahawks to win this game.
I think the biggest, most important thing is that they have to score more points than the 49ers. And if they don't,
thank you, Captain Obvious.
They're not going to win. Hey, I will note, a tie, as much as we don't like ties, a tie is also good enough to win this division. And I don't know the last time that has happened in NFL history, but that would be an amusing way for Seattle to clinch. But anyway, the first thing to me is, I think defensively, they need to get Purdy off of his rhythm. I know I've been saying rhythm a ton, but just get him uncomfortable, whether it's forcing him out of the pocket, forcing pressures, but also at the same time, they cannot let him be magic in terms of extending plays, because Purdy, if nothing else, whether you think he's a very good quarterback or not, he can extend plays. And it's going to be a bit of a stressor on the Seahawks secondary if it's going to be one of those 4 or 5 second chase arounds and Purdy's able to find an open guy. It's more, can you get him frazzled to make a panic throw? And Purdy has had some of those panic throw moments, even against Seattle. So I think that's going to be on the pass rush first and foremost. And they haven't been great lately. Like the pass rush, particularly from the edges, has not been strong for about a month solid. Now, some of it is they're playing quarterbacks like Grandpa Phillip Rivers, who want to get the ball out as quickly as possible. But even the Rams game, Stafford wasn't always getting the ball out quickly, but the pass rush just wasn't getting home with 4. They were more effective when it was Lawrence and Chenna in the game than when it was Mafe and Hall. So I could make an argument that Tank and Chenna might actually be more important than just Derek Hall returning. In Carolina, Chenna was probably the best edge rusher on the team, even slightly over Mafe, who actually got a sack. So can they do some little twists and stunts? Can they run some games up front where Purdy is having to kind of be sped up a bit? So that's key 1. Key 2 to me, on the offensive side of the ball, can they find some explosives? Can they find some explosive plays against a 49ers defense that is vulnerable? We just saw it last Sunday. They were giving up a bunch of huge plays to Caleb Williams, and they were giving up a couple of explosive runs, whether to Monangai or mostly DeAndre Swift. I believe they have given up an explosive pass touchdown each of the last 4 games. And the Seahawks have had, I think, 1 explosive touchdown over the last 4 or 5 weeks. So Jackson Smith and Jigba has had a historic, truly great season. And the fact that Puka Nacua had 47 yards, actual yards, not the hypothetical yards that people were trying to give him on Monday night. He's probably going to end the year leading the league in receiving yards. But in terms of the explosive plays his way, they have gone down since the Rams game. Like, he's getting his catches, but is he getting those 40, 50-yard bombs, or is he getting like a 20-yard catch and taking it to make it 35, 40 yards? Not nearly as much. So they're going to have to find those, I think. I don't think this is a game where they can just keep relying on trying to methodically move the ball down the field 5, 10 yards at a time when they aren't in short field situations. And then the third thing to me, and I'm going to go a little bit off base here, but just because we might have a lot of similar answers, the special team still needs to stay hot, because the 49ers special teams, after cutting Jake Moody, they've been one of the best in the league. Yeah. Eddie Pinheiro has been a big success for them. I don't think he's missed a field goal for them. Maybe he's missed 1. That might have been like a 62-yarder that hit the crossbar and went short. But their special teams has been great. But I also know that Sky Moore is one of their primary returners, and he is extremely prone to fumbling. And Michael Dixon, it seems like all the Australian punters have got an extra spin on the ball that makes life hard for returners. But if the special teams can keep its end of the bargain, Jason Myers makes his field goals. Michael Dixon, if he is called upon to punt, can he pin San Francisco deep in their own territory? Can they force a turnover? Can they limit the easy ways that San Francisco can have the field position advantage? And on the other side of the ball, can Rashid Shaheed, now back in the lineup, can he make a splash play here and there as a kick returner or even as a punt returner to set up Seattle in more advantageous situations? So I think that special teams is going to play a major factor, considering the special teams of both units has been among the best in the league. So those are my 3. I'm not going to say top 3, but those are definitely my 3.
Mookie, I don't know how you could come on this podcast and tell Brandon and Dan and myself, we're very credible football fans, that Puka Nacua did not make that catch. That was clearly a catch.
I've never seen a fan base bitching more, moaning more about calls they got correct in my freaking life in 2 weeks. It's absolutely ridiculous. You're complaining about calls they got right in the moment and have been determined in retrospect to be correct. What are we doing?
The mental gymnastics that people were doing to try to make their case or convince themselves that that was a catch is something I have never, ever seen before. Like, have you never watched an NFL game before in your life?
Like, no,
it's like, well, it looks like it should be. Well, I feel like it should be. I just have my feeling is, though, it feels like a catch. Well, what does the rule say? It doesn't matter what the rules say. I feel a way with it. And the Ram fans, like, got the consistency. Ask him to be consistent. By the way, the PI at the end of the game, not PI. That's not PI. When the offensive player reaches out and grabs onto the helmet of the on the defensive player like this and starts starting up contact, Bryce, you're free to correct me on this as a guy that sees officials and how they call this. Officials go, okay, offensive player is saying I'm going to let him duke it out here. So now when the defensive player reacts in the moment that he's going to be like, hey, offensive player, how about you don't grab the guy's face mask to initiate contact? Because what Atwell's trying to do, of course, is extend away. He doesn't have separation. So he's starting the act of, I might have to push this mother effer away from me to get to this catch. And this is where the consistency that anything doesn't happen, because all those Ram fans will sit there and look you in the face and bitch and moan constantly about the Super Bowl where T. Higgins has, with the whole play Jalen Ramsey, where he rips Jalen Ramsey's face mask in the thing and then makes the catch. So it's like, which is it, guys? Which is it? they'll get on the Puka thing, but then they'll come back to the Ernest Jones catch the prior week and go, no, that's not a catch, but that one's totally a catch. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just love that triggered Brandon so much.
Dude,
it was great. It was fantastic.
It's when they get it wrong, I get it. When they get it wrong in the moment, it's fine. But when it's like a week later and you're still sitting there like, come on.
Go ahead, Mookie.
I wanted to circle back on something from earlier with the 3 keys. If I could maybe swap one out, or 3.5 keys. The red zone is going to make a huge difference. San Francisco's second in red zone touchdown percentage. The Seahawks, I think, are below average. And since the Rams game, they're like 26th. So the red zone defense for Seattle has been amazing. But on offense, we're kind of back to this where we thought, oh, man, they're not a good red zone offense with Gino, and he's throwing too many interceptions, blah, blah, blah. Seattle's getting to the red zone a lot. They're not finishing plays nearly enough. And I think that they need to do better in terms of passing the ball in the red zone. That's not been an effective area. And maybe that's not an area that can be fixed necessarily this year. I still think that moving forward, they need a receiver who is a go up and get it option.
All right, Dan, I'll go to you next before we finish off with Brandon. What will it take for the Seahawks to pull off the victory on Saturday?
Score one more than no. I just think they have to play their game. And if I could boil it down to one thing, I don't think you can allow yourself to get behind against this team. These slow starts. And we forget that in week 6 they scored a touchdown on their first drive against the Rams. And that seemed important. It felt important in that moment, especially based on what we saw week 11. Of course, they fall behind by 16 later. It just feels like, especially being on the road and with the environment such as it's going to be down there, I expect it to be a vast majority of 49er fans. It should be a hostile environment down there. It's just a lot harder in the playoffs on a short turnaround for visiting fans to be able to buy tickets. So I don't expect much of a Seahawks contingent down there. So I guess if I had to boil it down to one thing, it's just avoid disaster early, right? Just don't fall behind early. Don't, and that gets back to Clint Kubiak and his opening script and all of that. Do something we haven't seen before, right? Don't come out and run the same plays during your opening script that we're used to seeing, because guess what? That means Robert Saleh is used to seeing it too. Maybe save the play action boot to the left until the second half, not in the first opening script, because teams have sniffed that out. They know it's coming. So I know I was kind of all over the place there now, but I just think a good start is really, really important for them. And by that, I don't mean they have to get a lead, just avoid disaster early.
No, those are fair. Brandon, you're up next here, man. What are your keys?
Yeah, I think part of the reduction of the effectiveness of the offense has come also from a point of like emphasis, and that being 4 interceptions in that game against the Rams was a distillation of the fact that this is a really great football team that doesn't need Sam playing at an MVP level like he was kind of doing early on in the year for them to go win a Super Bowl championship. And that in playing a little more conservatively and maybe perhaps reducing down some of that effectiveness, you've been able to control some of those turnovers, or at least the ones that were really snipping him and biting him in the butt. The late in the play kind of turnovers, the trying to do too much turnovers, the trying to fit it in rather than just take a positive play kind of turnovers. I think Sam's more embraced hitting the flat routes. I think he's more embraced using a little bit more of his legs on the back half of the schedule, and he's embraced not trying to do too much. I need Sam not to try to do too much in this game. This goes to Dan's point of just be who you are. You're a great football team. You've earned the right to be a great football team. He doesn't have to carry the load. He can operate within the context of this team and understand that. And I think if he does so and the team does so, they'll come out of this game with a comfortable win.
All right, gentlemen. Well, I think that kind of covers it up. So let's actually do this. Let's talk to all these viewers we got. We got 1,300 now in here, pushing to 1,400, which is absolutely awesome. So appreciate all of you in here watching the show. But let's start off with some of these comments from earlier. And we've got a new member, first off, CJS Sports Talk. I'm not sure who he's coming through here, whether it's Brandon or Dan.
There you go. Thank you, SGA.
We've got one here right at the start. Narc Diaries. Just want to say I'm so proud of you. Multiple weekly roundtable shows with others is so awesome, and still doing our shows for us fans. Keep it up. Hope you have a great 2026 and are having fun.
Hey, Kelly. Appreciate it.
You appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, next one in here. We got a $5 donation coming in from who is that exactly, Brandon?
Jay Gundy.
Jay
Jay
Gundy.
We got Jeff Van Gundy in here.
I apologize. Dan's getting blocked out. He's down at the bottom. You can just see Dan's eyes the way the camera gets. There you go, Dan. You're part of it now.
Thanks,
You got to bring your eyes up into it, and then you're looking down. Like it's so interesting.
What was the show? Home Improvement.
It's Home Improvement with
Home Improvement. Exactly. There we go. There's a reference.
Yeah.
There you go.
A little bit higher.
Yeah.
There you go. Perfect. Dan, you're on
Howdy ho,
point.
Tim. Yep.
And then oscillate between looking down and then looking up, and then looking down.
If there's coaching changes, do you feel Dirty would move to call plays? Would Scott be a good DC to replace him?
Carl Scott.
Brandon, I'll start with you. Yeah, Carl Scott.
Who are you starting with?
I'll start with you, Brandon.
Well, Mike Macdonald still calls the plays, so he hasn't intended and indicated that his intention is to stop calling the plays, and nobody's going to hire Dirty as a head coach if he's not calling defensive plays. So I would just say that Mike's going to have a good number of guys in this league. He'll have connections too, including like that Ravens team. Like if the defensive coordinator there gets cut, wouldn't surprise me in the least.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
That's exactly what I was thinking too. Like it hasn't gone great for him.
So
Zach Orr over in Baltimore. Yeah.
Zach Orr, exactly. So it's like you think about a guy that, could be up there. I think the Titans as well, with moving on from their coaching staff. There's another acolyte out there that is kind of under the umbrella of Mike as well out there. So I think that you could find pretty ready-made answers if you had to go there. But again, Mike's I still kind of just consider him almost the DC in so many ways because of the fact he is calling the plays. And that's, as much as anything, kind of the most important part. I know I'm not, developing and getting the system and all that, but I mean, it's a big part of this process. So I think we're all well suited there.
I think it's more
I'll be
likely
honest,
that Carl Scott. Go ahead.
That's what I was going to say, Mookie. I think it's more likely that Carl Scott will be on another team staff this next offseason as a DC for somebody because he's done it.
DC job. Absolutely.
I think it's he's done such a good job with the DBs transitioning from Carroll into Mike, and you look at what he's been able to do with guys like Tayakata and some of these other guys, Kobe Bryant, and getting them situated and playing at high levels. And that's Mike too in the whole unit. But I think Carl Scott's kind of potentially worked himself into that opportunity of becoming a DC. It just probably is not going to be in Seattle. We go here to Cool Breeze. He goes Vegas and respected analysts had us at 6 or 7 wins. I believe he's talking about Seattle in this, and it's true. Like you think, what was it? 7.5 at the start was the opening over under for wins for Seattle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I don't really give a shit what Vegas thinks with the betting on with the lines, but the respected analysts, I'd be thinking more of the Ben Solaks at ESPN. Yeah, I'll name them, and kind of putting too much emphasis on thinking that Gino and DK and others were like the difference between the Seahawks being a 10-win team or 3 or 4, and that wasn't the case. And we're seeing how Gino ends up being in a much worse situation in Vegas, much like with Russ heading to Denver. So yeah, most of us, we kind of bucked the trend. A lot of Seahawks fans, certainly the ones who did our field goals predictions, thought 10-win team minimum. So it was really only the people who weren't paying attention to the Seahawks throughout the offseason or declared that the season was basically going to be bust the minute that they let Gino walk. That would be a 7-win team. But then free agency happened. Then the draft happened. And to me, the draft, I think, put the offseason over the top. I went from lukewarm about some of the signings to, wow, this is a really impressive draft, to, all right, I think I can see the vision. And it's everybody else came on board late, but hey, it's better late than never.
Amen.
No, that's definitely very true. So we've got Keith and Bernie, the unbeaten. Darnold will see Casper Saturday night with a $1.99 donation. I don't truly believe he's going to see Casper because isn't Casper a fictional character to begin with?
Dave Casper was a great player for the Oakland Raiders back in the day. He probably still is in the Bay Area.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking the friendly ghost.
Look, Sam Darnold might own a Casper mattress. Those things are nice.
Oh, they are nice. They are very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So
maybe also if he beat the Niners and came out like a Casper, like doll or whatever that he was doing like ventriloquist stuff in the QA. Like, I didn't see it tonight, did I? No, you didn't. Oh, wow.
Hey, Darnold might still see ghosts, but he can sure as hell exercise some demons on Saturday night.
There you go.
Oh,
let's
well
go.
done.
I just that was worth 3.
Oh, well, there you go, Mookie. You got that. So we've got the gamer in here goes, go Hawks, baby. And then we've got addicted to Hawks. The meeting of the 4 family, La Familia at its best.
It was a must. We had to come together and make sure we're prepared for the playoffs. It's a good time of year.
I should have brought my fedora.
Yeah.
Brandon's mastered that now. Like, absolutely
Not going to touch that.
It's all about
Brian
that,
comes
bro.
in
Good stuff.
and goes, men of culture, we meet again.
Let's go, Brian.
Excellent. What else we got? Oh, this one's interesting. Feed me more Seahawks. Oh no, it's Mookie to haunt my dreams. Mookie, why are you haunting
New York
people's
dreams.
dreams? What have you done?
Is it because the more that my hair grows, you're just afraid that you're going to get engulfed and lost in my afro? I don't know what it is.
Or maybe it's the Jeremy Lane in the back. It's making him think about when he got hurt in Super Bowl.
Yeah, it must be. But the play in the back of my virtual background is when Richard Sherman recovered that block field goal in the 2012 Christmas Eve game. Or it was on the 23rd, but the 42-13 win and took it back for a touchdown. And I missed that play live, by the way. So that was the highlight of the game.
Were you peeing?
I had to go downstairs to get Christmas dinner. And by the time I went back up, it was 21-0.
Always wait for halftime for food. The C Yeti backup to have this much success with QB brand new to the organization is rare. And I believe he's talking about Sam here for sure. And I agree. Like, Sam to do what he's done this year. Again, yes, the offense has carryover between the two, like certain aspects, but still this amount of, and new weapons and everything like this is a lot and pretty remarkable in its own right.
And back-to-back years too. Happened in Minnesota last year, and he wins what were they, 14-3? He has another chance to be 14-3 again this year, but with a much different outcome of a number 1 seed, as opposed to 14-3. Congrats, you get to play the Rams in Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah,
it's very, very true. We got Misfit here, goes, we must take advantage of being so healthy as a team. Totally agree. Like, Brandon, you brought it up. Like, this is an opportunity for this team, being as healthy as we are, to take advantage of the 49ers not. What else do we got in here?
2 ends of the scale, man. Just 2 ends of the scale you find yourselves in, for where they're at to where we're at. And that's a defining part of this game coming into it.
All right. We got Dogzilla in the house. Gives us a $20.26. The 2026.
I like
Happy 2026 New Year to Dan Viens and the syndicates, and to everyone. All hail to all of us 12 disciples, and to our own Pope Leo and Archbishop Abe. Let's go Hawks. I really like that. Well done.
Appreciate you, Dogzilla.
How about that Pope stat, huh, guys?
Nice.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me think that sentimentally they should sign Troy Main Pope, just to be extra safe.
Do you go left or do you go right on the Catholic one? It's like right to the Protestant, or it's left to the Protestant after you do the.
I
forget.
Idea. All right, we got another one in here from Jay Gundy. Goes, just for funsies, if you had to swap one D player for one O player, who would it be? For example, Bradford to nose tackle and Drake to running back.
I got one. How about I want to
go.
And I know he had a couple of snaps in college at this, but in a goal line, I want to see Byron Murphy at fullback. I want to see that just once. In fact, I'll take it a step further. Go Byron Murphy at fullback, extra tight end, or bring in a 6 offensive lineman, Robbie Utes at tailback. There you go. The big package.
Brandon, what
I'll
about you?
Jalen Milroe at safety.
Ooh. There you go.
This is a tough one. I'm going to go with a Reek Woolen, a wide receiver. I mean, that's a very original idea, just to see what damage could be done with a guy of that frame. Like, I don't know if he has a wide receiver background, but to me, he looks like he could be an extra, kind of like Deion Sanders would run some routes for the Cowboys, or Devin Hester went from a cornerback to a wide receiver full time with Chicago. So just something to consider.
There you go.
If we're going to talk about guys going over and playing receiver, give me Nick Eamon-Wari out at X.
Ooh.
I'll give you an outside the box one. I think with his size, length, and athletic profile, I think Leonard Williams could have been an elite tackle.
Ooh, good one. Yep.
That's a good one. Definitely.
All right, the comment section did not pick up my sarcasm. Darn it. All right, of course I know.
It's always 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Thank you for the $5 donation there.
You already played receiver, Mookie. You already did. They tried him. They already did it, man. Come on.
Oh, man. Blue and Green Zone. Hey, guys, you're all banging out videos all day. Keep up the content coming. A great job, Mookie. Time to start a channel.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of time just to start a channel, outside of my OnlyFans. But still, I mean, you can follow either way.
Hashtag, yeah, give him the URL, Dan. Give him the URL.
Link
hashtag, what's his hashtag, Dan? What's his self-chosen URL on that OnlyFan?
I don't know.
Nothing that we can publish without getting demonetized.
Have Mookie laid out.
But the link will be in the description.
Yeah,
I'm
link will be
reading
in the
advanced
description
metrics
for that.
in an erotic voice. That's what's going on.
Check my link tree. Right.
What do we got here? We got Feed Me More Seahawks with Jared Goof out. We have
What?
Brock
Oh, God.
Purdy and Jordan. Okay. Matthew Hasbin, Jalen Noodle, and Caleb Men's Warehouse, Sam Darnold, and Bryce Too Young for me. Well, thank you for the $5 donation and the parody names for each quarterback currently sitting in the NFC.
Gosh.
Pretty good there, baby.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Give you credit there, Feed Me, on that one. Oh, we had Jesse in the house.
Jesse in the house. What's up, Jesse?
Appreciate you stopping by, my friend. Great show with Brandon the other day, as well as you guys' NFC West round table. Love that show.
I got a hat bet online on this, boys. I cannot be putting a Niner hat again.
Oh, please tell me you got a good hat for Jesse that he's gonna have to wear. What, like, is it gonna be like?
You guys want to see it?
Yeah. What does this look like?
You got a little rivalry hat, or you got something ugly as sin?
Ugly as sin.
That's the way to do it.
Oh, excellent. That's the way you got to go.
Oh,
Oh, yes. I love those. Oh, that is fantastic.
I'm thinking about cutting off the top too, because he's got hair up the top. So just make the hair come off like a peacock,
Like a
too.
visor style there. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Well done, Brandon. Well done.
I totally forgot the Niners are doing their rivalries uniforms,
Yep.
Black
debuting it
and-
that
yep.
night.
I was kind of hoping we'd go all whites. As much as I love the blue bottom, white top, I was thinking, just the stark contrast, good guys, bad guys, all white, all black. I think that was a missed opportunity for the Hawks.
I kind of wish they had been able to do the throwbacks week 18 instead of for Minnesota.
Yeah.
I've been with that.
I don't know.
All right.
Bryce, answer a quick question for me. Is there anything to the fact that when you're Sam Darnold, you drop back and you're getting some pressure and you got to make a quick decision, you look down the field, the defense is in black and your receivers are in white. Does that help?
It does. The contrast does help because it's quick kind of pickups of things, right? So
I would think.
the white jersey is going to be the big outlier here in that case, because the problem is the Seahawks dark blue helmet is close to almost a black at night.
Mhm.
So it kind of blends in. And this is where when you got like teams that wore kind of similar jerseys, like I think one of the games to this day that I think had the most contrast for a quarterback was when Tampa wore all red and the Rams wore all yellow, and it was the ketchup and mustard game.
Oh,
You all remember the
color rush thing. Some of those
color rush.
Yeah, some of those were.
Yeah, the Bills and the Jets look like Christmas.
Yes.
Yeah. If you were a colorblind quarterback, that was a rough year.
Vinny Testaverde would not have done well then.
Was he colorblind? Was that his
He
thing?
was colorblind. Yep.
And he couldn't see the goal line either.
No, he could not. Montgomery here. I feel like we never throw swing passes anymore. Yeah, that's a fair thing, and it drives me and Brandon nuts.
Same. Yeah. Really frustrated with their inability or unwillingness to get the ball to Walker in space.
I want them to
Well,
run
it's in-
actual routes, like actual running back routes. Like they're not going to be
Yeah.
Gibbs, so fine, or McCaffrey, but let them be like non-check down options.
Mhm.
Run an angle route.
Give me a wheel route. Give me a wheel route, baby.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially to stress a 49ers linebacking group that is down Fred Warner. So
I love me some wheel routes.
Yes.
All right, we got Eric Pearson here with 1,000 yen. Appreciate
you,
that
Eric.
donation.
Yeah.
Wait, is it Domar Arigato? Is that? Thank
Mr. Roboto. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Well done.
I don't got it.
There you go. Brandon's got it down there. Appreciate that, Eric. And we got another one here from Clay. I'm going to the freaking game, boys. Big fan of you all. Go Hawks with a $5 donation. Appreciate
Let's
that,
go.
Clay.
Represents.
Eden?
Have
I'll
fun
say
at the
this.
game,
Go
man.
Hawks, man.
I'll say this one silver lining: if the Seahawks should lose on Saturday, I think we're going to go to the game in Charlotte. It's a 5-hour drive.
If it is Charlotte, if it is
If it
the
is
Panthers,
Charlotte,
we
it could be
still the
Tampa
Bucs.
Bay.
I'm confident. Well, and I think the Falcons have to. No, the Saints have to beat the Falcons, right? Hey,
Yeah,
the way Tyler Shuck's playing right now, they might take
Yeah,
care of that for him.
Man,
Noah-
he's
Noah
actually
Olave.
been impressive. He has been quite impressive there as a quarterback. So who knows? But we got Robert here. Our special teams will make key plays to help us win the game. An elite unit, $5 donation. Appreciate that.
They've been
Robert.
doing
I
so
agree.
all year, man. You're right.
Hey, did you guys
Every
see-
game all year.
Did you guys see today? Bill Barnwell did his All-Pro team for ESPN.
Yeah, and he had
Oh, I haven't
Michael
looked at it
Dixon
yet.
as,
He
a-
had
as an
Michael
All-Pro.
Dixon, the guy that's been ignored since being All-Pro as a rookie. Yeah, it was nice to see him get a little bit of love. That was cool.
It's
I
wild
feel-
with Dixon because he's on a Hall of Fame. If you can be on a Hall of Fame
Yeah.
level of approach from a punter position, he is, but there's just no heat behind him, which I get it's the punting position, but I mean, he's every marker as a punter can be measured by, he's elite in. So it's
So
just
can I-
kind of weird.
And he's gotten better in just about every measure since his All-Pro rookie year, too.
Here's the thing that I think did him a disservice, and I'll be honest, and you guys can disagree with me, but this is how I view it. He came in as one of the Aussie style punters, right? That had, could do all these different things with the ball. He could punt it where it's going left and it bends back to the right and do all these different things, which he did those first couple of years, which really put him kind of on the map. Like the punt gets blocked and he scoops it and he punts it again. He runs the fake punt. He does all these other things and it kind of put him on that map. And now he's gotten so good as just a general punter and like doing the things a general punter does that, to your point, there's no fire behind him, Brandon. Like he doesn't really pop out because he's not doing all these other unique things. He's just kicking the ball so well and placing it so well that it kind of just gets forgotten about. And a lot of these Aussie style punters have really kind of come into the league as of late, where he was one of the guys at the forefront of it. It's kind of like he's just kind of fallen into the mob there at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you watch every college football game, and any college football game, it seems like this punter recruited, born in Australia, and now is coming over to. Some of them are like 29 years old, I swear, and they just got college eligibility. But yeah, Michael Dixon is underappreciated. We've been fortunate to go from John Ryan to Michael Dixon so seamlessly.
Yeah, no, that's true. And do you know the punter before John Ryan?
Oh God, Plaquemire, just a waste of a draft pick by Russ.
Darn it, Mookie. This is like we're sitting at freaking El Guacho again there on the water, and we're trying to play with Brandon and Dan and see if they can remember, and you got to steal the thunder again.
Not with my old, no, not my old brain.
Remember the Cowboys
I don't leave
game?
room for punters. You got to start taking space out as you get older. And, punters in 07, don't need that.
Remember when
Mookie,
the
let's-
Cowboys game happened, the Romo fumble at the 1 yard line on the fumbled field goal hold, and Seattle still had to punt the ball, and Plaquemire just unleashes this complete anvil of a kick, which should have otherwise run the clock out, and that allowed them to get a Hail Mary off. If they had lost that game, that's like entirely on Plaquemire.
Oh, I know. It was not great. And before him, it was Tom Ruin. That was the punter before Plaquemire there in Seattle. Fun fact for everybody that no one gives a crap about. Addicted to the Hawks goes Bryce with the Milrow package. LOL for real. So good. Yeah, I don't want to see that package again. That package can be burned. It can be black marked. It can be put in the classified. Just never bring that out again.
It can be worked on next offseason, but this year we can give up on it.
Burn it. No,
I don't know.
trust
I don't know if we need it. I don't either. If the offense is this good, like they were in there, they're still going to build upon what they did this season. I'm okay with
leave it away. Just develop him. Develop him as a quarterback. Don't do these weird things. Rockman in the house goes, do you guys think Torrey Horton will be back for the playoffs? I don't know about you guys, but love to see Torrey, JSN, and Shaheed give defenses nightmares.
Sure doesn't seem like it.
No, unfortunately,
Doesn't appear so.
And even if it
was there an
did,
update given today in the press conferences at all?
Not the
no
best.
update. And funnily enough, because of the bye week, if they get the 1 seed, we're probably really not going to know at all until like the divisional round, if it comes to that, whether Horton's coming back. So,
And even if he does, you're not going to see Horton, JSN, and Shaheed on the field at the same time.
No,
Agreed. It's going to be Cup, Shaheed, and Horton to be sprinkled in there a little bit throughout the course of the game.
Yeah.
Just as long as we don't have to see Bobo anymore.
Get him healthy for next year. Get him healthy.
well, he's been named a captain. So I know some of you might have seen that route that Bobo ran in the red zone on the last field goal
You mean
drive.
the one that you shared with the world, Mookie, that was just made me want to cry inside when I watched that? Yeah.
That was like the least open anybody has ever been in the history of the NFL. So it's just, yeah, more Bobo was fun, but like we have our limits. Like we don't want too much more Bobo.
He peaked with the quick snap touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little sweet. Yeah, he peaked. That was his peak.
Donnie in the house goes, hello again, Brandon and all. Hope everyone's well. Hello,
Hey,
Bryce,
Donnie.
Dan, and Mookie. Happy 2026.
Happy 2026, man.
Right back at you.
Yep.
All right, we got Randy in the house here. Goes with a $5 donation. All the smart people picked us at the bottom. I'm
Shield.
not sure.
Shield
Yeah,
Kapadia,
Shield. I was thinking, I
Shield.
was like, it's Shield, right? Shield Kapadia and those cool guy pods. I mean, he's super smart. Everyone says so. Another tool bag. Well put, Randy.
Let him know, Randall. Let him know, man.
Call it the way you see it, my friend. I appreciate that. Well done. Oh boy. We've got Wes in here. Jameson goes, can't wait for the Doogie bang bang. Niners.
Dougie,
guys,
not Doogie.
Dougie.
Oh, Dougie. Sorry, Dougie.
It must not have made its way up to Canada yet.
Yeah.
No, it hasn't. And I refuse to let it up into Canada with all the stuff that we got that goes on up here. So it's fine. But yeah, the least I have to see of Purdy doing his dance, the better.
Mm-hmm.
I got Randy back in here again. He's got two more. Tyler Cotta looks cool when he tackles like Roper.
Hey,
Like
he's a Montana kid, right? So
Yeah.
he probably knows how
I'll
to.
be honest though, in this last game, he was like just a menace out there in the open field making tackles.
Mm-hmm.
Such a nice development for us because if the less stuff we have to attack, the more precise we can get in what we do address.
Yeah.
This offseason, I mean.
And I'll be honest, the Quentin Lake deal that came out today, I think is the conversation around
not
what
giving that to
Kobe
Kobe.
Bryant's gonna.
Yeah.
I know, but that's why I think Kobe's looking at it going, great for me. Like this guy, our stats are similar. You know what? I could probably command something close to that. And I think if I'm Seattle, I'm going, yeah, I got Ty. We're
That's
good.
why I told you guys at the start when they came to him at the start of the year. It's kind of played out to what I said a couple weeks ago, right? Which is that they came to him and with probably a low end offer at the start of the year. And then when he said, no, I want to be paid this. And now everything's pointing in the direction of him to be paid at that spot. So it's good on Kobe. You rolled the dice on yourself and it's paid off. But at the same point in time, he's not going to give us the pay for play that we're going to have to do in that situation in the returns.
Hey, I've been saying all along that I thought the Seahawks are going to be fairly aggressive in free agency next offseason, and thus we probably couldn't count on any comp picks. But all our guys that I think have a chance to hit free agency and walk are all playing well enough. There's a chance the Seahawks could go out, sign Tyler Linderbaum and Trey Hendrickson and still get comp picks. How about that?
Possible. Or you do the Linderbaum, you trade for a Crosby, and then still the collective gets you 3 picks on the return, right? Because your point. And I think you can juice this up in that way. I really do. I've been hot to try this for a while. I think it's a game that we should try to play this offseason with how many free agent losses we are going to have that are going to get a decent contract.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This is very true. And Randy in here with the final donation. D-Law is going to wreck this game. He wants a ring.
Yeah, remember there was another DeMarcus who used to be with the Dallas Cowboys, and then he went on a considered all-time great defense or an elite defense and won a Super Bowl with a much worse offense, I might add. I believe his name was DeMarcus Ware. Wouldn't it be something if DeMarcus Lawrence has kind of a similar outcome as DeMarcus Ware and can get a ring? Because he's never been beyond the divisional round. I mean, Dallas, he's been in Dallas all those years. They won, 2 playoff games?
What a great signing.
Well, the standard those guys have set, Leonard Williams and him, and the rest of the Julian Love within it too. Those standard those guys set and what they show you in the play and the hustle and not just making splash plays, but putting that effort at all snaps they're on the field on the line constantly. This standard guy to me cannot be undersold for the reverberating effects it's going to have on the youngsters on this roster. This third youngest roster in all of football having guys like this that are showing them the way that's already done plenty to just dial it back, but are not doing so. It's a part of it. I wonder as an X factor in us getting to a championship this year. If it were to happen, we'd look back on and really having that carry a heavy amount of weight.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I got an interesting one in here. I think it's a kind of a cool one to maybe end on, except we got another donation in here. I think they just popped through. And it's exactly the one I was going to pick. So here we go. Eric comes back in with another $500 yen, I think, or 500 yen donation.
Thank you,
I
Eric.
should say. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. He goes, could you guys do a post-mortem on the Raiders season? What happened? Brandon, I'll start with you.
Every team's got to decide about where they're at in the start of the offseason, about where their team is truly at. Are they rebuilding? Are they ascending? Are they purgatory? Are they elite? I got 4 stages a team finds himself in. The Raiders made the first gross error at the start of this by miscalculating where they were truly at as a team. They did so on that front because of the fact that Coach Carroll does not want to spend 5 years rebuilding something from scratch. He wants something jump-started pretty quick. And that was something that now was putting kind of pressure to the side of the Raiders to go and jumpstart it, get it going fast. That is going to lead you astray. You've got to do it right, not do it fast. You came here initially at the time you did back in the day. You turned the roster over, heavy churn. It wasn't about trying to get this going quick. And that's part of why you built a sustained winner. They tried to do this fast. Now this has counted them in the long term. It's going to hold them back in this getting fixed anytime soon. And it really is driven by them thinking that they're actually, no, we're ascending. We're not rebuilding. We're actually ascending. No, you were rebuilding. That's where you should have lived.
Dan, what about you? Where do you think it all went wrong in Vegas?
I mean, I think Brandon nailed it. I was wrong. I thought it would work to some extent. You know, I thought it was a cool new opportunity for Pete, one that I didn't think he would get. But I think really what it says to me is that it just confirms that the Seahawks made the right decision when they made it to move on from Pete. Sometimes the game passes you by, and if you're not willing, you adapt or die. If you're not willing to change, then the game will win. It always will. And I thought when he hired Chip Kelly and kept Patrick Graham, I thought, okay, that's good. That indicates to me that he's willing to be more of a step back CEO type head coach, not meddle. Let Chip run his offense. Let Patrick Graham continue to run his defense. It was pretty darn good the year before, actually. And a lot of people forget about this. Patrick Graham actually got 2 interviews with the Seahawks during their coaching search. But he didn't. And all the things you hear out of that building now are that he did the opposite of that. We now know what a nightmare it was with Chip Kelly, but even some infighting with Patrick Graham and trying to meld the 2 schemes and trying to bully himself a little bit. Bully's a strong word. Pete's not going to bully anybody, but it's just over. I don't think there's any way that they can justify bringing him back. They've got to reboot that thing. And I think that's just one of a myriad of reasons that I think Max Crosby is going to be available this offseason.
Mookie, and I'll finish with you on this. What do you think went so horribly wrong there? Out of, Brandon and Dan have touched on points, but for you, is there anything else that stands out?
The roster's just not very good, even without the injuries and the trades of Jacoby Myers. But the vibes of that team have been off basically throughout the offseason. I have no idea what was going on with the Christian Wilkins cut. And then also Jacoby Myers, before the season even starts, demands a trade. And he gets it eventually. But all the rah-rah stuff that Pete has done over the years, this is the first time he's doing it on a team that is irredeemably terrible. Like they weren't even a little bit good after week 1. And in fact, the fact that they beat the Patriots in week 1 is perfect example of week 1 weirdness and how whatever you see week 1 is not always what you're going to see the rest of the season. Because if you rematch that right now, New England will win by 40. Gino Smith, we have to bring him up. He's playing poorly. He played poorly. He is an aging quarterback in this situation. And he's somebody who I think in 2022 and 2023 was a significant part of why Seattle was able to avoid dropping into the abyss. But to expect somebody with Gino's track record over the years to just keep playing at that level way into his mid to late 30s is a bit unreasonable. And I think even Gino's biggest supporters kind of were blind to the aging curves. He's been bleeding sacks. Yes, the offensive line is bad, but the protection hasn't totally explained away all of his interceptions and all of his questionable decision-making. Yes, he doesn't have a great supporting cast. Like Tyler Lockett is probably his top receiver right now, and that speaks volumes to the state of the Raiders. Roster construction, not good. If you want to draft Ashton Genty, you better build that offensive line better than he actually did. and they didn't. They have one of the worst rushing games we have ever seen.
Yeah.
And for Pete, he's been willing to adapt in the sense that he's more aggressive on fourth down than he's ever really been. He apparently listens to some analytics or data analyst, and that helps him with some of his decision making. But defensively, whatever Patrick Graham was doing before Pete got there, like that's Pete's defense through and through. And the same problems we saw in Seattle in these final years are the same problems we're seeing in Vegas. Bad on third down, bad tackling, poor fundamentals, being so terrified of giving up explosives that they're willing to let teams nickel and dime them all the way to the end zone. These long 8-9 minute drives, these constant third down conversions. So there are a lot of things that it's not just Pete and Gino, but they're kind of the main characters here. And it was right for Seattle, in hindsight, to move on from Gino. It was definitely the right move to move on from Pete. It does not take away or detract or retroactively mean that Schneider was the real brains of the operation this entire time. It just means that at some point it is time to move on. I didn't think they would be this awful. I thought that they would be like 7-10 would have been respectable, I think, for the Raiders. To be 7-10, maybe they got a piece here and there. They could move on from Gino, find somebody else. Well, whatever. They got to blow that sucker up. They have no choice.
And,
new coach,
the scary part about that for them is John Spytek might not be good at this GM thing. Like that draft is absolutely terrible. It might be the worst draft that anyone had this year.
Yeah, and that's another thing. They are until the injuries happened, until they were way out of the playoff race. Pete would not play the rookies over the veterans.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another complaint of Pete toward the end of his time in Seattle. So some of his weaknesses were propped up by the fact that he and John were able to build a good enough roster that it couldn't be 3-14. Pete's weaknesses with a bad roster means he can't elevate a bad team anymore. So I don't think we see Pete coach again, and I think college moves too quickly now with this NIL stuff for him to really go back in the college game. Yeah. My hot take is I don't think Gino is a starter anymore. Like, I don't think he's ever getting a starting job again because unlike Joe Flacco, he does not have the requisite equity built up for a team to take a chance on him moving forward.
So the one thing I'm going to add to this, guys, I think why it failed in Vegas is even though Pete wasn't in control like he was in Seattle, where he had the vice president's role there or president of a football operations role, he still was allowed too much freedom in a lot of ways of who he brought in. And when he brought in his kids again on that staff, that was a massive failure by the Raiders organization for letting that happen. Because if those are the guys that are keeping you in check as a coach, as Pete, you say, I've got my guys that'll tell me when I'm not doing, like the O-line there looked absolutely horrible. And last year it wasn't bad. It was, okay, but you had, Powers Johnson playing at a pretty good level as a center to all of a sudden move him out of center, put him in guard, and he looked 10 times worse as a player. You got, players that went out of town and Jacoby Myers and so on. Like, Pete just doesn't have it. Pete needs to become an analyst. He needs to do what Nick Saban's doing, like go on a show and talk, because Pete can talk and Pete's great at it, but he can't do the coaching thing anymore. I think, to your point, Mookie, they got to blow it up. They got to go down to the studs with it. Dan, you may be right. Spytek may be a horrible GM. It'll be interesting to see what they do with who they hire, because what do you bring in there to fix that? That's the other question. Like, who, you're not finding some offensive whiz. Like,
honestly, they're in such bad shape. I think you go hunting floor instead of ceiling. Maybe you hire a guy like Mike McCarthy, right? Just come in and right the ship, and maybe he brings in a couple of young coordinators. He did a really nice job developing Kellen Moore in Dallas, and you go that route, because I think just going with another young unknown head coach, I don't know if that's the right answer. Maybe a Robert Saleh kind of gets you that. Maybe he's kind of in that Mike Vrabel mode, right, where you had the experience, didn't work out great, but he's got I think he's a culture builder, or can be. But again, you got to have players, man, and I don't think he takes that job, for one thing.
All right, last one here. I think this one kind of piqued my interest a little bit, and Brandon, you'll have to explain. Cool Breeze comes in, goes, also on a side note, Brando is still currently undefeated with 64,704 streams without a single L. Give it up, folks, for consistency. Okay, Brandon, you got to explain this. What are we talking about here?
Oh, I get in my battles, man. You know that. And I went, I've been going to Jake a little bit on the round table with some of that Ram stuff recently. So I've been mixing it up. And I had 49er fans today in the chat. They're feeling themselves this week. You guys talked about it. They're as loud as ever, much louder than Ram fans in the build-up this week. And not just loud, that they're getting into that place of super toxic and just being just off the hook. Like, what is this accomplishing for you? Are you feeling better that you said all that? Did you get that off your chest well? It's like, I think there's emotionally something deeper and problematic, and that's probably the case, knowing Niner fans. But look, I'm going to fight on the Hill on some of the BS they're talking, especially when it comes to the Sam stuff. We've talked about it through the year. I understand if you ultimately don't have 100% faith certifiably in Sam. But man, I've watched so many fans and in our local fanship as well get caught up in this, where just lost in this situation for what he's done, lost for the performance he's put out there this year, where it fits in Seahawks history, what he's done to be a driving force. It hasn't been perfect. And is the turnover stuff there? Yeah. But you don't just get to glom to the negative. You got to look to the positive too on that side of it. And overwhelmingly, this guy in the first year with his first year of this team, first year with this offensive coordinator, first year with this offensive coordinator with this team, all of that stuff should improve even mightily more into year two, a year this season where you've set a point record. Now, some of that from the touchdown returns and special team. Yeah, a little bit, but it's also another representation on top of all the stats I can go to through with this guy that he's been as good as he is. So I don't mean to go on a tangent, but that's been really the big debate thing that I continue to keep hammering, not only within our own fan base, but within more outside fan bases coming in that are trying to sell it. And they don't have any argument. It all just goes back to Casper the Friendly Ghost, or last year with the playoff game where they say you can't win the playoff games based on one playoff game. People love to live in sample size in football. They'll cherry pick one play, or they'll cherry pick one game. They'll have all the rest of this other data there to make a determination. And yet they all just want to kind of narrow the whole view down into this little microscopic view of things. And I never quite understand it.
All right. I got one last good one to. Oh, Dan, you were saying something?
No, I just said, well said.
Oh. Mo comes in. Not sure any Seahawks were born when the Niners last won the Super Bowl.
Well, it's always good to not make Leonard Williams a little bit younger than he actually is, but I think he might have been like born in '94 or something like that.
Yeah,
so that's about as close as they get. Certainly, none of the Seahawks players on the roster were in, say, second grade when the Niners last won the Super Bowl. So, yep.
All right, guys. Final word here. We've been at this for 2.5 hours, another long syndicate stream, and I'm going to go clockwise here. Brandon, I'm going to start with you. First off, let people know where they can find more of your stuff, and also give me your prediction for this game.
You can find me at the Hawks Nest here on YouTube, or at Seahawks Nester on Twitter. And I'm coming into this game with confidence that I feel like is earned. Will it surprise me if this becomes a close game because it's a divisional matchup and all that's on the line? No. But if I'm going to make a prediction about the way I see it for how this is setting up and how the Hawks are setting up, I think we're coming into this ready to take down this 49er team. I think they're weakened by the injuries. I think we take this game comfortably. I think it's another one we put on this on the books here from this year. I'm going to go 31-17 Seahawks. Ooh. I'm feeling what they're doing right now.
Ooh, wow. All right, Mookie, where can people find more of what you do so well along with your prediction?
Fieldgoals.com, and then I also run the Field Goals Twitter and Blue Sky account. So at Field Goals on X/Twitter, and then Blue Sky fieldgoals.bsky.social. And I also do some stuff for SBNation.com. But for a change, I'm not going to be part of their playoff coverage because the Seahawks are out of the playoffs. I will be doing regular stuff on Field Goals during the playoffs for however long the Seahawks are there, which hopefully is all the way through the Super Bowl. My prediction, I think this is still going to be a close game because Seattle just has too many things they do that kind of invite close games against better teams, namely the turnovers. So I think that they're going to let San Francisco have a couple of kind of gifts. We'll see how this game is officiated with Vinovich as the ref. He's normally been pretty good. But I think that Seattle is going to make some critical fourth quarter plays on both sides of the ball. I think we'll see a go-ahead touchdown pass from Sam Darnold. Maybe to A.J. Barner. Barner has kind of been like the hero lately of the offense. And I think on defense, Nicky Manmori, you want to make a statement as far as being defensive rookie of the year, even with all the weeks you missed due to injury, getting some sort of turnover, pass breakup, anything on Purdy, or even a forced fumble against whomever, I think that would be a hell of a closing statement. So I'm going 27-24 Seahawks. It's going to be a classic Seahawks 49ers close game as long as both teams are good. But it'll be Seahawks success and 49ers tears at the end.
Let's go.
Ooh, man. All right, Dan, where can everyone find more of your awesome content, and what's your prediction?
At Seahawks Forever on Twitter, Seahawks Forever on YouTube, nwforever.com. We'll take you to my Patreon. You can also find daily content on Seahawks on SI. I'm feeling good about this game, too. I think the Seahawks are ready for this. I do. I think they're physically ready. I think they're mentally ready. I think they've done all the work to get to this point and be in a position where they can go into this game feeling good about themselves. And there's another little X factor here that I don't think is getting enough attention. I think, first of all, just straight up, the 49ers are coming off a much more physical and much more intense and emotional game on Sunday than the Seahawks played in Carolina. And people have said to me, well, but the Seahawks had a long flight back from the East Coast. The Seahawks plane arrived back in Seattle about the time that the Bears and 49ers game was wrapping up. And so they've had a chance to recover. The other thing is, the Seahawks had those extra 4 days. Their last game before was week 16 on Thursday night. The 49ers are about to play their third game in 13 days for the second time this season. Those things take their toll. We've seen it. And now you're down Trent Williams on top of it, as well as a defense that couldn't stop, hasn't really stopped anybody. And they haven't played an intense, important game against a good opponent since that Houston game. And what did we determine that was, week 8? Where I think the Seahawks, coming off the Rams game week 16, I think that's a little bit of a feather in their cap heading into this game. I've got it 27-16. I think the Seahawks hold the 49ers to field goals when they get in the red zone. And as I mentioned earlier, if they can weather the storm early, stay out of trouble early, even if it's just kind of a slugfest early, like I kind of like that Carolina script, right? And then they're so good in the second half. I really like their chances in this one. I'm going 27-16, and they get the bye and home field advantage.
Well, I can see kind of where we're all hanging out point-wise here on this one. So for me, earlier today when I was on my preview show with Jason, I said 27-24 Hawks, and that Sam Darnold would lead the Seahawks down the field for a Jason Myers game-winning field goal late. However, having gone over this and talked with you guys, I'm changing that slightly. I think it's going to be 27-20 Hawks, and I think it's Sam Darnold taking us down the field for a game-winning touchdown instead to ice the game. So that's where I'm going. And if you guys are looking for more of my content, it's the Hawks Eye, which is hosting tonight's show. And again, guys, the Syndicate rotates. So next show it'll be either on Dan or Brandon's podcast channel. But speaking of the next show, guys, shall we announce what we're going to do during the playoffs?
Yeah.
All right, guys. So Syndicates usually comes at you guys every 2 weeks. We're usually end of the month and then usually middle of the month. But because playoffs, we don't know if and when and how long Seattle will be in the playoffs. We're hoping it's a Super Bowl run. Syndicate will now be a weekly show in the playoffs, guys. So we will be back next week for another roundtable discussion, getting ready for either a round 1 matchup in the wild card
or bye.
at what possible matchups the Hawks could be.
And then we'll just roll that into the Senior Bowl. That's going to be a big, big month for the Syndicate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then we got Senior Bowl. So Senior Bowl at the end of the month as well. And if you guys can or want to contribute to that in any way, Dan Viens and myself both have GoFundMe's going on. So if you guys want to share or contribute to that in any way, it'd be greatly appreciated. So with that being said, guys, I think it's a pretty good spot to wrap up tonight's show. So we'll go out on a Go Hawks, and let's see if we can actually all sync this up and none of us freeze or anything like that. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3. After a half-second pause, after 3, say Go Hawks. See if we can sync that up, okay?
Yeah.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Go Hawks.
Oh, God. We screwed that.
What?
Have a good night, everybody.
That's a long half second.
Have a good night, everyone.